I did everything right and they indicted me.
And I don't know what the I'm doing. Antifa!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Katie Halper Show. We are thrilled to be here today with you. It is a scary time, but it is comforting to be surrounded by people who have the same worldview, by which I mean think that the world should not be blown up, which is, I guess, not a view that is shared by most of the people who run this world. So welcome. Thanks for being here. Please do, if you haven't already, give this stream a like. That's a great way to fight the algorithmic suppression and the tech bros. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe, especially because we keep doing these extra streams. We had one with Dr. Mohammed Marandi and Haim Bresheeth-Zabner on Sunday, which people really enjoyed because we were wanting to connect to people actually in Iran, or people who had insight into this. And obviously, Dr. Mohammed Marandi has both of those things, and we wish him and his family well during this insanely scary time. And we also had on Haim Bresheeth-Zabner, who is someone who was raised in Israel and has written a lot about the army, very critical, anti-Zionist Jew. And that was a really fascinating discussion. So make sure you check that out. And again, the voices that we have on the show are really voices that you won't hear in corporate media. So that's another reason we encourage you to subscribe. Again, it's totally free. You just hit subscribe and then the bell. And again, because we keep doing these extra streams because things are happening and it's so scary. Also, please do like the stream. As I said, that helps with the algorithmic suppression. And please do make the show happen by becoming Patreon supporters if you're not already Patreon supporters. And you can do that at patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Again, that's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. We have a great Patreon only chat with Haim Bresheeth-Zabner just from Sunday, where he talks about the Epstein button and he talks about the future of Israel. And if you're not already a Patreon subscriber and you join, you will have yourself be giving yourself the gift of hundreds of hours of extra content. So everyone, welcome again. Hello, Daniel from Lagos, Nigeria. And I'm really excited to start the show. Someone just criticized something in my back, which is true. In my background, I had a little hair thing that shouldn't have been there. So thank you for that, Lisette, for my interior design. That is a great thing about this show. No fourth wall, no fourth anything. We are going to have a great show. We are doing 3 segments. Our last segment is going to be on Iran, and we're going to be speaking to, oops, I just said no wall. We are going to be speaking to Sina Toossi, who is an analyst, and he's going to give us a lot of analysis and insight and observations into what is happening right now in Iran, literally as we speak. Before we speak to Sina, we will be speaking to two other people who are making their Katie Halper Show debut. Very exciting. Nerdeen Kiswani, who is suing Betar, the violent hate group, Zionist hate group, Betar. She and her lawyer are suing Betar. So we're going to be talking to her and talking to her lawyer, Chris Goodshall, about why she's doing that. She's at Within Our Lifetime, by the way, which is a great organization. But first, we are going to be speaking to 2 people who are going to be talking about another area of the world that is being, I would say, tortured by the United States. And that area of the world is Cuba. There's a lot of pain, but there is also a lot of joy that is happening there. Despite the fact that the United States is trying to strangle Cuba. And to do that, we are going to be joined by a friend of show, Kate Willett, and making his Katie Halper Show debut, Danny Valdez. Danny is a New York City-based Cuban-American organizer who does Cuba solidarity with DSA. And Kate Willett is a comedian, the host of the podcast Dystopia Now, and she's also organizing around Cuba solidarity with DSA. And they're going to be talking to us about this special Cuba convoy that they're both participating in different ways. So welcome, Kate and Danny.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Wanted to ask you, I guess I want to start out with you, Danny, because you are a Cuban-American person. CAP.
Yes.
I just made that up.
CAP.
Yeah.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
Yeah.
I like that.
We're going to run. Yeah. And you know, one of the things that I think unites a lot of people right now is that a lot of us are telling the world and showing the world that the way that the media and political elites say that we are doesn't really match up, right? So I'm a Jew who's anti-Zionist. I don't feel threatened by people wearing keffiyehs. I have a keffiyeh. I'm not a virtue signal. I'm just saying they're so not scary. I have multiple keffiyehs. I am afraid, by the way, of the man named Netanyahu, who not only is a threat to all of humanity, but likes to dress up what he's doing in literal Judaism and references to Purim as if he actually wants to create more anti-Semitism in the world. And you are a Cuban-American. You're even from, dare I say, Miami. And yet I don't think you want to see people starve in Miami. And likewise, we're going to be talking to an Iranian-American later who I don't think wants to see people blown up in Iran. So who knew all of these people exist? But Danny, tell us about why this issue is important to you.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I grew up in Miami as a child of Cuban immigrants with everything that you think that entails. I lived through it. That somehow I came out on the other side with a different understanding of Cuba's, not only Cuba's politics, but Cuba's economic situation. And really what I sort of had to learn myself is that a whole secondary part of the story of Cuba's current conditions has been purposely ignored and not talked about. And that is the role that United States foreign policy has played into, yes, Cuba's economic conditions, but what infuriates me the most is it's also probably the number one contributor to Cuba's political conditions as well. Because if you have a country that is forced to kind of govern itself as if it's this under a siege, a wartime siege, which is basically what Cuba has been under for 60 years, that's not exactly the kind of place you would find a liberal democracy kind of flourishing. And so I think all I want to do is complete the story and tell the full story. I don't really have ideological requirements that every Cuban who wants to oppose the embargo needs to support the Cuban government or needs to, be a socialist or a communist. Like that to me is a silly divide that we have amongst ourselves, because nobody outside of Cuba can affect the politics of Cuba. I mean, both as a moral stance, right? But also just from a practical level, we have very little influence over the day-to-day decisions of the Cuban government, but we all do pay taxes to a government that is actively using its hegemonic power in the region to strangle this island that dare to break away from that hegemony. Right. And that's really the story of what's going on. And, all I would ask is that my Cuban American brothers and sisters at least understand the full reason for why Cuba's in the conditions that it's in. And that doesn't excuse anything. That doesn't cover for anything. And it's just trying to understand it fully and affect the things that are actually going to make a difference on the island.
And tell us what brought you to the island for the first time. I mean, I think you've been there before, right? So what did you, 2 questions. Tell us about your first time there. Tell us about all the times you've been, if you have trips that you can compare. And also if you had an aha moment that made you see this situation in a way that was different from your parents' view.
Yeah. So I've been to Cuba twice, once in 2023 and again last year. Both times were with DSA as part of a delegation of DSA members, and that's actually how Kate and I met on one of these on the 2025 delegation. So I went as sort of a delegate the first time in 2023, and then in 2025, by then I was leading the delegation. So it really, going to Cuba for the first time, obviously it was a political trip because I was going with a bunch of socialists who were interested in learning about the Cuban system. But for me, it carried this double sort of weight because I was confronting this place that, I think many people from immigrant families, they hear about their homelands as sort of this Shangri-La kind of place, shrouded in all of this it's at once the most beautiful place, but also the most horrible place. and going there and seeing it myself, and really the deja vu that I felt just from growing up in Miami, which again is only 90 miles away. The climate, the flora, the fauna, the architecture, the people, it all just reminded me of being back in South Florida, but obviously like a weird mirror image
Right.
of where I grew up. And, you know, like seeing even the hardships for myself and talking to Cubans themselves about how they feel about the way that their government has responded to X, Y, or Z situation. I mean, there's often a lot of talk about Cubans being so resilient and being, you know, most Cubans are just tired of being resilient.
Yeah.
Like, no one should have to be resilient for every day of your existence for 65 plus years. It's just like, they just want to live normal lives and have access to basic things. And, you know, just like have an economy that can provide for them.
Yeah.
And so, you know, hearing from Cubans, their perspectives, it was like really meaningful, obviously. And then
like, oh, you don't you don't really live for being a symbol of resistance to
exactly
Western hegemony. I mean, not that they're not that and they're not that resilient, but I definitely got that sense also from Liz, who we spoke to. From Belly of the Beast.
Most Cubans, you know,
yeah.
just like here, are you know, just trying to get by day to day and are not really interested, especially in moments like this where, you know, what has politics done for them in the last decade, basically, you know, especially young Cubans I always say it's kind of the inverse of what we have here, where in Cuba, the older generations are way more likely to be more on the left and like communist and support, you know, the old school kind of communist values. And then, but young people who have grown up in a basic perpetual crisis, you know, it's only natural that this is the result. And again, this is the intention of U.S. policy, right? It is to drive desperation, to drive starvation, to drive poverty, so that people question the system that they're living under. And again, like, if you're only questioning it and only evaluating it for the mistakes that the Cuban government has made, you know, okay, that's one way of understanding it, but it's not going to solve the problem, because the problem is inherently tied up in how the U.S. has postured itself toward this, you know, tiny socialist island 90 miles to its south for 6 decades.
Yeah. And now, Kate, you obviously have a very different story because you are not Cuban-American. So what was your aha moment? And tell us about your experience there.
Yeah, there's no like, oh, wow, I wasn't expecting that from you kind of aspect of my identity. Like I'm a bisexual artist, and I'm a feminist and a socialist. It's just like, yep, that's really on the nose. But I went to Cuba.
Actually, you need to have your own show where you're like, not all bisexual artists are actually pro Cuba. Or anti-sanctions or whatever. Yeah.
Well, you know, I've been a socialist for a long time, and I visited Cuba in 2023. And I think I went in, like, I knew that people were having a difficult time there. But I think I was more optimistic when I went. I was just like, oh, you know, like socialism, like, yeah, I know it's hard, but like universal healthcare, I dream of that, you know. But actually being on the island and seeing what the blockade is doing, and just the level of material scarcity that people have been dealing with, especially since 2021, like in response to COVID mostly, you know, I mean, just what the US is doing is so horrible. And I knew that, but seeing it with my own eyes did inspire me to like be like, okay, I guess this is going to be, you know, an issue, you know, for as long as it takes in my life. And then I was able to go back to Cuba with the DSA delegation in 2025, and that was really powerful, I think, to be there with, you know, other socialists. There were like a good amount of Cuban-Americans in our, and you know.
This is like a critique. This is the world saying, oh, and we think only Cubans have it bad. Look how bad our internet system is here.
Yeah.
Sorry, what were you saying?
Yeah.
Kate, you got
just the delegation was an amazing experience, and it made me want to, like, the experience that Danny and the other delegation organizers gave me, I wanted to give that to other people because it was incredibly powerful.
Other members of the bisexual artist community, the BAC.
I mean, I've been like a full-time salesperson for getting people to go to Cuba.
How many
I feel
new
like I have an
identities
MLM.
have we spent
Yeah.
tonight already?
Yeah. This is great. In fact, we're gonna have to add 2 delegations. A couple new delegations. Yeah. But speaking of delegations, tell us about this convoy. So Danny, you're organizing a delegation of Cuban-Americans. Kate, you're organizing a delegation of journalists and media makers that, in full disclosure, I am joining. But tell us about the convoy, very excited, and then these particular delegations and what they're going to be doing.
Yeah, the convoy started as a flotilla, and it was this effort by Progressive International, which also led the flotilla to Gaza last year. And this was kind of a similar effort to try and break a siege, right? Break a blockade. But the response to it was so overwhelming that Progressive International decided we can't just send a couple of boats. We really have to open this up. And so it was sort of turned into this big day of action, international day of action in Havana on March 21st. And they've just invited people from all over the world to get to Havana, however you can. And I'll say, even if you live in the US, as Katie and Kate, and I'll be going as well, you can still go to Cuba. It's possible, but people are coming from all over Europe, all over South America. And it's going to be this big, 10,000 people show of international solidarity with Cuba in this moment that, I would say they're probably in their most vulnerable post-revolutionary moment right now. So I think it's really important, not just to, uphold the Cuban project politically, but just to say that, like, we cannot go around and stomp down every country that wants to operate differently from the way we want to set the rules, which is basically we're going to use our military might to do whatever the hell we want. I mean, that seems to be this, like, Donald Trump woke up on January 1st and, like, decided that this was going to be his new MO. And within days, right, we had the strike in Venezuela that Maduro is still sitting in a jail in Brooklyn.
So
I mean,
great,
that's insane to me. And that has just come and gone, really. He's not going to experience any consequences for that. So, of course, he's emboldened now, right? Like, he thinks he can do it with Iran. I think he's dead wrong about what he's going to be able to accomplish there and in the time span that he wants to be able to accomplish it in. And has his sights set on Cuba as well. And I would say Marco Rubio has his sights set on Cuba. And again, in the same way that we're learning about how Netanyahu and the Israel lobby basically pushed Trump into this war, the Cuban lobby and the Cuban right wing, which are highly organized and have been organized for decades, they literally organized a terrorist attack to happen in Cuba just like last week. Thankfully, Cuba was able to thwart it before anybody was seriously hurt or injured. But, this is a militant, empowered right wing that is both has federal power and power over the U.S. military, but also like this like insane paramilitary power that they're just willing to deploy. And there's nobody to sort of rein them in or stop them because they're all being fed by the same right wing propaganda machine.
Yeah, and I don't think people know. I mean, we can do a whole other episode on this, but about all the history of terrorism that
long
Cuban
history
exiles have participated in and faced.
This is why it's even more of like a slap in the face when the U.S. calls Cuba a state sponsor of terror. Like, are you kidding? Like, Cuba has never committed an act of terror on any country, but the amount of terror that's come to Cuba from the U.S. is, there's dozens of cases like that.
Like downed planes. I mean, we hear about the big failures, like the Bay of Pigs and this whole thing the other day, but then they kill people and then are given, refuge here.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And then they continue planning here, and they sort of integrate themselves into the paramilitary right-wing unit that is literally obsessed with invading Cuba and overthrowing the government militarily with guns. Like that's what they want to do. That's their stated purpose.
Right.
You know?
And it's interesting because I understand people, I didn't grow up in Cuba. I have a lot of affection for Cuba, and people are always like, oh, it's easy for you. Yes. And it's true. I don't know what it's like to live there. But what I will say is that, like, it's one thing to oppose a government, to be critical of it, hope that it changes, hope that it's elected out, or even, let's say, like, there's an uprising. That's all one thing. And I'm thinking of like Iran, Cuba, Venezuela, wherever. But to see people celebrate like terrorism is just something I don't find at all relatable.
No, and even like
the streets.
Politicians like Carlos Jimenez and
Yeah.
Maria Salazar and all these like awful right wingers who are calling for the starvation of their own people,
Right.
who are calling for the deprivation of their own people, and then they turn around and blame the communists for depriving and starving their own people.
Right.
To me, it just has no bearing in reality, and it's purely a revenge fantasy for these people. That is what they want. The Cuba that they were benefiting from was taken from them violently, and that's real. Like, that is a trauma that these people experienced. We can say it's kind of like it's a nice trauma to have, I guess, but like it is. And it is this sort of raw, unprocessed class grievance and psychological trauma that is just mixing in this extreme toxicity that is then kind of amplified by this echo chamber in Miami that just repeats everything over and over and over again. And it's a real, I think, I'm drawing a lot of inspiration in this moment from groups like JVP and young Jewish people who organized, who spoke out, and, in the span of like 2 years, completely changed the American public outlook on maybe the most third rail political issue this country has ever known. Yeah. That's pretty remarkable. And I think what happened there was the moral weight of it being, young Jews at the forefront. Not only young Jews, of course, there are lots of Palestinian activists that were involved, people of all stripes, but there was like a moral weight that was lended, I think, when young Jews were saying "not in my name." Yeah. And, I'm hoping to organize a group of Cuban-Americans who also want to say "not in my name," because all of this is being done and the justification is, this is what, exactly. This is what all Cuban-Americans want. They all want, violent.
Listen to Cubans.
Yeah, right. But not the ones on the island, not the ones in the government, not the ones, only the right wingers.
Right.
So, but I would say even like younger generations of Cuban Americans, like me and my brothers and younger, that's changing. I have a feeling, again, it's a very similar trajectory that happened with Jews in America, where the older generation is very much clinging
major generational shift,
ideological fervor around this project, where younger generations who have maybe a level or two of detachment from the direct experience are able to sort of see it in a different way and understand that like the things that are wrong in Cuba are not only the fault of the Cuban government, and it's just irresponsible to the Cuban people to not talk about what the second part of the problem is, and the major contributing part. I mean, it's the first part. I would say for the first part. Exactly right. Exactly right. Exactly right. So can Cuba reform? Can it change? Can it have new laws? Can it become? Yes, all of that is there, and they have been reforming. By the way, they had a new constitution in 2019. A new families code. Like, they are trying to adapt and evolve, but their scope of what they're able to do is so limited by the economic reality that they find themselves in. And so, we can't then turn around and say, oh, they're not free because we created those conditions.
Yeah. But the people who claim, people who actually care about the suffering and the lives of people living in those countries don't celebrate. I mean, I'm thinking of whether it's people dancing after Iranian school children are killed, schoolgirls are killed, or people celebrating hunger in Cuba. They're just they're sadists. Totally. I wanted to also give people the chance. Let's see. There is a Brad. Do you have something that you want to show back there? I see something. No. Is there a tweet? Okay, sorry, that's for another segment.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just want to give people a chance to know about this. Tell us about this fundraiser, Kate, that you guys are working on the media. What's it called? Delegation. Yeah.
So I'll be really quick. Basically, I had the idea back in October, like more people in the United States should know what's going on in Cuba, understand what the United States is doing to Cuba specifically. But I haven't seen it break through on social media. And I had this idea of like bringing people, YouTubers, influencers. It sounds obnoxious, but also real journalists. But I want people to see on social media what is happening in Cuba. So one day, maybe 10 days ago, Danny called me and was like, oh, by the way, you're doing this right now in line with the convoy. So we have a group of about 20 lefty journalists, influencers, YouTubers, including Katie, that are going to be going to Cuba, collaborating with a journalist who works with Belly of the Beast. And people will be making all different kinds of content, ranging from like urban planning theme to history theme to interviews like Katie does. But, hopefully we can get out there, what is happening. We have a fundraiser. We're going to be using some of the money for humanitarian supplies. We're going to bring down there small scholarships for low-income independent journalists or creators. And also everything legal. We're fundraising only for super legal stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go. And it's not covering my stuff. So I'm not having people on the show to get,
and most creators are self-funding. I do want to say that most of the people, and basically anything that we earn in this fundraiser that goes beyond just like the bare minimum to get everyone there that needs there and deliver the supplies, we will be donating this to material aid for Cuban people. I'm like trying to think of like what I can say without getting in trouble, but I think this is just true. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Yes. And then Danny, you had something that you also want to share.
Yes. Sorry. I want to plug what DSA is doing in terms of Cuba organizing right now. We launched a new campaign last week called Stop the Siege. And basically, this is a campaign, kind of a three-front push to get legislators to sign on to a bill from Jim McGovern, who's a great Cuba ally, that basically repeals all the statutory things that keep the embargo in place right now. There's 20 co-sponsors of it. We want to get a lot more. So there's a tool that's embedded on this link to send a letter to your member of Congress to ask them to sign on this bill. So I urge everybody to take care of that. And there's 2 more actions, including signing on to a petition and donating to a direct aid. We just made one page where you can take those 3 actions right now. It's go.dsa.org/Cuba. And you can go there and it takes 5 minutes to take all 3 of these actions, and you'll have done something to advance the cause.
Great. Awesome.
And the creators on our delegation will be promoting this fundraiser as well.
Do you want to name who any of them are? Or are we not?
Well, Katie Halper's going, Tom Delgado. I know some of you folks probably watch the YouTube channel Radical Planning. The creator in that YouTube channel is going. We have some very funny stand-up comedians who are going. Jeff Seal, who made some amazing Zoran campaign videos, is going. Like, we have a really, really great group of people. Christian Divine is very popular, cool Gen Z influencer. I'm learning about the Gen Z influencers. Yeah. Freacon. It's a great group. I like everyone going.
Great. There's some more names, but I guess we're not naming them yet. So
I'm trying to keep track of 20 people.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But it'll be great. Yeah, I'm very excited. And thank you guys for coming on, and also thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you, Katie.
Yeah, of course. Let me just see. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys. Come back on another time. And it's been great talking to you. Okay. We are so excited. Everyone, if you haven't already liked the stream, please give it a stream. Oh, come on. People in the regular view, as in the horizontal, less than a quarter of you have liked. I know you're not hate watching, all of you. And people in the vertical view, less than, actually, you have a better ratio than the other ones. Lower number of people. Oh, a lot better, actually. So, guys, everyone needs to like the stream more. Don't be hate watchers. And we're going to bring on our next guest for our next segment. We are really, really excited about this one because we're going to be talking about stuff that we talk about a lot on the show. And it's very exciting because someone is actually taking on Betar. And if people don't know, Betar is a very scary group, and we're going to talk to you about them in a second. But I'm just going to bring on the guests who are going to be talking during this next segment. Nerdeen Kiswani is a Palestinian organizer from New York City. She is the founder and chair of Within Our Lifetime, United for Palestine, a community organization revitalizing the revolutionary spirit of the Palestinians in exile in pursuit of liberation. And she is a graduate of the CUNY School of Law. She has successfully organized campaigns to pass a resolution by the student government and faculty of CUNY Law to cut all ties and divest from all Zionist institutions, defend the right for Palestinians to resist colonization. In 2021, Nerdeen led a campaign that successfully defeated a proposal to adopt the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, which, as people know, equates anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism. And her latest achievement, I think, was being targeted by Betar and now suing Betar under the KKK Enforcement Act of 1871. And she's also joined by her lawyer, Chris Goodshall-Bennett, a civil rights attorney and partner at Lee and Goodshall-Bennett LLP, who's been active in Palestine solidarity work since his time at Columbia University, where he co-founded the Jewish Voice for Peace chapter. So welcome, Nerdeen and Chris. Thank you for joining. Hi. Thank you for joining. So it's so exciting to have you on. I've been a big fan of your work, Nerdeen, and I've seen you fighting the good fight and really taking on the powerful and the elites and not being compromising. So before that, we get into this story, this case, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your story, your family, your connection to Palestine?
Good to be here on the pod. I'm always listening in and enjoying your work, and so it's an honor to be here. And thanks, Chris, for your support, not just here, but all the crazy last few months we've had, just compiling all the insane things Betar has been doing and saying about me and other Palestinian activists. But yeah, I mean, I'm a Palestinian New Yorker. I lived in New York my entire life. I came here when I was 1. I was born in Jordan to my Palestinian refugee parents. My father was born in Palestine, but my mom was also born as a refugee in Jordan. And they're both from the village Betar, which is originally part of Jerusalem, but now it's on the other side of the apartheid wall. So it's technically, part of the West Bank. But what's unique about my village is it's one of the only villages in the West Bank that has a checkpoint just for the people of our village, our 2,000 people population, tiny village that has maybe a handful of stores, if that, in it. No university, no like real jobs or anything like that. And people have to go through that every single day in and out just for the basics of living. I have family members, my uncles, my father, many family members who regularly go to Palestine. But this year they actually put a new restriction on my village where you need to have like a magnetic ID card to get in, and you need to be a resident of the village to be able to get in. So, I, even though I'm an American citizen, I have been denied entry before to all of Palestine, but, I can also, even if I make it in, I could be denied entry to my specific village where all 4 of my grandparents were born, where I could, trace my lineage for generations and generations.
Wow. That is really infuriating. And I think, one of the things that's happening now, of course, is that in the midst of all this regime change, violence, ethnic cleansing in Gaza, violence that's happening to the people of Venezuela, Cuba, Iran, child killing, which is one of the favorite methods used by these modern armies like the US and Israel. I think a lot of the other violence is getting ignored. I mean, even the Gaza genocide is getting ignored. We have this, ceasefire, right? The Board of Peace. And so I think it's so important to keep talking about this issue. And not to mention the violence in Palestine, not just in Gaza, because that is just gets totally ignored. This daily violence that people are facing, and doesn't even make the news.
Yeah, it's de facto annexation, what they're doing in my village. And, they also shot and killed the child at the checkpoint going into my village about a year ago. So, this is stuff that people are facing daily. But of course, violence only becomes a topic of concern when it's equalized and it starts, there are casualties now on the other side.
Right. Or not. I mean, I don't even think it's equalized, right? When there's any perpetuation, right? And something that I'm just so shocked by, and I obviously know that you don't mean that literally as equal either, but you're pointing out that when there's violence from the people who are being colonized or ethnically cleansed or genocided, that's when people all of a sudden start condemning violence. They're fine with it when it's actually perpetuated by the people who actually have a first-rate, modern army. And I just am stunned again and again to see the way that civilian death is avoided by the armies, like what Iran does. I mean, if you see their targets versus the targets of Israel and the United States, there's no comparison. Same thing with Hamas and the Houthis. There really isn't. And there's that famous, I think it's Sinwar. We're probably going to get booted off of YouTube right now, but Sinwar saying, okay, you want us to kill fewer civilians and give us more modern, surgically precise weaponry. But they certainly do not go out of their way to kill civilians the way that Israel has been doing. So, anything else that you want to make sure people are aware of in terms of what's happening in that area?
I mean, I think what we're seeing right now is also part of laying out the groundwork for a greater Israel. And, I think a few years ago, people rejected the concept that, there's no such thing as a two-state solution. But now we're seeing, nobody saying that a two-state solution is even possible anymore. It's a de facto one-state solution. Israel's controlling, every bit and piece of Palestine, all across Palestine. And so, to those who might be thinking, it's conspiratorial or exaggeration to, talk about greater Israel now. No, this is the action plan. This is why Israel pushed for Trump to bomb Iran while they have, one of the most sympathetic presidents that they don't know, what the future is going to hold, but while they have him in office, they wanted to really take advantage of that. And that's what we're seeing. I think, what happened in Lebanon and Syria, it's inextricably linked to what's happening with Iran right now. And it's all connected back to Gaza. It's all connected back to Al-Aqsa flood, which, the Operation Iran is similarly named. It's also called the flood. Just to show that, at the end of the day, I think Palestine we say it's a litmus test and it's the compass, not because it's, the most important people or the most important struggle of our time, but that it's connected to so many things that really make the trajectory of the Middle East, not that I even like that term, but the trajectory, of our people clear when it comes to decolonization and when it comes to fighting Zionism. And how Zionism is a cancer, not to just the Palestinian people or the people in our region, but, people all over the world. Right.
Yeah. And unless anyone, trot out that tired talking point that it's anti-Semitic to say that there's a greater Israel project. Well, Mike Huckabee has done us all a great favor by making it clear that this is also a Christian Zionist project too. So there's nothing inherently Jewish about Zionism. There obviously is Jewish Zionism, but there's Christian Zionism and
unfortunately some Muslim Zionism now too. So.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. A lot of it seems like that you scratch an Iranian monarchist and you get a Zionist.
Yeah.
But and Chris, tell us how you became involved in this issue.
Oh gosh. Sorry if my microphone's weird. My headphones are not working properly. But I went on Birthright was really the origin. I was, my name is Chris. My mom's Jewish. My dad's not. was, had that experience of being sort of in the margins. It's pretty common nowadays in the United States. I think it's like 50% of young Jews are half and half.
Oh yeah, and like what's his name, ADL guy, Greenblatt. They're very upset about this.
They're very well, that there's not even anything to say in response to that. That speaks for itself.
Yeah.
I went because that's it's advertised when you're young. I was at Columbia. They're very active there, and this was back in 2011. I went thinking,
And by the way, Birthright, for people who don't know, is a free trip for Jews who haven't been to Israel. Such a problem. I mean, ridiculous name. Says it all. They haven't been to Israel on their own before, right? Like even if you've been with your family, they're like, well, you still haven't been on your own, so we're gonna
no. It's a designed to sort of just like create a personal association among every young Jewish person they can get their hands on. It's ironic now because since we filed this lawsuit, like the questioning of my Jewish identity is all over the place, and yet I was like, when I went on birthday, they were like, you got a great grandparent that's Jewish. Right. And I'm like, well, it's my mom. But yeah, no, it's everyone's Jewish enough for Zionism, but once you question it, then all of a sudden it's your credentials are called into question. But yeah, I went and I was I don't know, I'm a thinking person and was horrified. I mean, it's not hidden. Like it's like they try to hide it on Birthright for sure, but it is like deeply apparent that it is apartheid. Even within Israel for sure. I mean, I think that's another group of people who don't really get really highlighted in terms of the very particular struggles that Palestinian citizens of Israel have, but that is a deeply difficult position that many people are in there. They have very, very limited free speech rights. You can't fly a Palestinian flag. There are like Jewish only towns. There's like land use problems. And then there's like the Jerusalem Palestinians who are not connected to the water supply. I mean, it is like with home demolitions. I mean, it is literally in every aspect of that society that it's willful ignorance if you go. Right. So I went, came back, was horrified. I happened to go to Jordan for a different purpose than in 2014 and was like, you know what, I'm going to cross the border and I'm going to do like an anti-birthright trip and see all the things that they don't show you. So I went, it was right around the Operation Protective Edge in 2014, which at the time was the deadliest military offensive in Gaza. And, I went and I saw, met with some really inspiring anti-Zionist Israelis, the very few of them, but they organize, tours of demolished homes and they advocate. They literally will find out about a home demolition happening and go and sit in the house to try to stop the bulldozers. And we went around, we explored, went through checkpoints and everything just to see what they don't show you. And then, the rest was history. I changed my major, happened to meet another anti-Zionist Jew who was in the same position where we felt alone. We weren't really welcome anywhere without, towing that line. So we started the Jewish Voice for Peace chapter in 2014. And it was one of those, like, if you build it, they will come. So, there were 10 people. And then now I look back after everything that happened in Columbia, and it's like amazing to me that like that was such a huge, like it grew exponentially over the years. And it's reflective of the shift in young Jews' attitude. It's a totally different landscape than it was 10 years ago.
Right. So tell us about, well, thank you to both of you for all the work that you do, and tell us about how did this this lawsuit emerge? What was the spark for it?
Nerdeen, you want to talk about your experience, and then I can kind of talk about some of the legal stuff that arises from it.
Sure. I mean, we've seen Betar's disgusting rhetoric and actions all over social media, harassing, people not just like myself, but also other anti-Zionist Jews like Norman Finkelstein and, even people that I've criticized like, Peter Beinart. I think they even criticized the ADL and Shai David for being too soft. So that just, goes to show where they lie on the spectrum. But they first came on my radar when I heard about them harassing student groups in New York City, kind of making just threatening remarks a little bit more extreme than what we've seen. And then they were also tweeting at me. That's not new to me. I get that from a lot of different Zionist orgs. Stop Anti-Semitism gave me Anti-Semite of the Year 2020, which they also gave to Ilhan Omar. And I know Miss Rachel was a contendant, unfortunately.
Oh, man. So upset, yeah.
But
she was sitting down when she found that out, yeah.
Yeah, I think the Ben and Jerry's lady won, for being, for Ben and Jerry's pulling out of settlements in the West Bank.
Oh, yeah.
So, among good company there, except for the last one. I think they never gave a white person or a white man the award up until this year. I forgot who it was that won, but like it's always been like women of color, and then Kanye West won.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Not to get off topic here. But it was just like not new. I get attacked by Zionist groups all the time until I saw one day that they tweeted that they're giving $1,800 to anybody that would hand me a beeper in real life. And they were completely, serious about this, like actually putting a bounty on my head, offering cash, fundraising for themselves also, along with that threat. And they were a registered nonprofit. So, I was just like,
and do we have this, Brad? Sorry, do we have this tweet? This tweet where they were threatening Nerdeen? Is that in the list? Sorry, because we have a bunch.
There's so much. It's hard to keep up with it.
There are a lot. I have gone through and cataloged.
Yeah,
there are a lot.
I am not seeing that one. We have many, but
okay. Yeah, it's impossible. Okay, so keep going. I guess, Brad, Nate, if you could give Brad a heads up, I guess maybe as Nerdeen is speaking, just like text me and Brad the number of the thing, because if not, I don't know. We needed to do this, like requires a whole team, like a whole slideshow, an AV department extension that we just don't have. Okay, so sorry, keep going. So they offer like people money to hand you a beeper, to hand you a beeper.
Pretty much. Like that's what that connects back to. that was after the beeper attacks that killed and maimed children in Lebanon. So they were, how am I supposed to know or think anything other than that's exactly what they wanted to do to me. And they would show up to our protests, and like it was mostly men. They would try to confront me, get physical, try to approach me, like literally lunge at me, follow me, stick cameras in my face, threaten people around me. And, I would just try not to talk to them, try to just gray rock them, just like starve them out, not give them any attention one way or another, not, fall into any provocations or anything like that. And it would just continue to increase, right? The threats on social media. I think Glenn Greenwald even called them out on them offering the bounty for me, and like they got a little bit shook after that. They actually took down the tweet because they said, "Oh, we see that this is a distraction, but the offer still stands." So that's actual language they use. So the offer still stands. They also started talking about me being a test subject for denaturalization. Trying to get my citizenship, American citizenship, stripped away from me and trying to get me deported. And they were going after, all of these different student activists at Columbia as well. And it seemed like every single time they singled someone out, like Mahmoud Khalil and others, they would suddenly get picked up by ICE. And we saw a correlation from the people that they were calling out, the people that they were targeting, with the people that the state was targeting. And this wasn't in our imagination. And I'm sure Chris can speak more to the specifics of this, but there are in court documents basically proof that the state is looking at who Betar is singling out, who Betar is giving names to the State Department. To the this administration, on who to deport and who to target. And Betar also openly says that as well. Every time like they would say, well, you're going to be next, you're going to be denaturalized, I would see a headline come up, and then in the same week that oh, Trump is talking about denaturalization. Now we're hearing they're doing a quota of 100 to 200 people that they want to try to denaturalize every month. And so these threats are very real. We were talking before the stream. I have an infant child. I was pregnant during the time of all of this. So I literally had my pregnancy bag ready. And then I also had a go bag ready if I needed to leave the country because I'm being denaturalized because a Betar is like targeting me and trying to get me, kicked out of this country, and also making threats against my life. And so it was incredibly stressful. I'm sure that they target a lot of other people as well, which is why the New York Attorney General also ordered them to disband, but their penalty or their fine is suspended. So they don't actually have to pay it unless they break the terms of the settlement that they had with the New York Attorney General, which I believe they've broken already dozens of times by, how they've spoken about and how they've come after me, even since that announcement. But no actual criminal prosecution, even though she literally says that they tried to stab someone, or they did stab somebody, and used, anti-Palestinian, Islamophobic, rhetoric. And I just, can't imagine how things would be if the roles were reversed in any way, shape, or form. And so, this is not just to make it about me, but also to show that there are consequences to be paid, that they are not going to just operate with impunity, and that, we're not just going to sit back and allow these people to continuously abuse us in our community without any repercussions, or at least an attempt at that whatsoever. And so we're hoping that this will bring about justice, not just for me, but for every single person that has been attacked by Betar. You're muted.
I'm muted. Can you share? We actually have a bunch of screenshots. Let's just share some of these so people can see how vile this group is. And Betar is someone who is an organization that I think I just saw a tweet from you, Nerdeen, that was Robert Maxwell part of it, or someone in Ghislaine Maxwell's family was part of it.
Robert Maxwell.
What can you tell us about Betar as Brad is getting these things ready? What more generally, like who they are?
So it was founded in 1923 by Zev Jabotinsky, which is the leader of revisionist Zionism. And this is like the ideological root of many Israeli far-right movements.
Exactly.
And
he, by the way, was very honest. So I want to make sure people know about this part. But he, bless his heart, was very honest about Israel being a colonial project, which is why it's so funny whenever people say it's not colonial. Like literally Jabotinsky writes, one of these early Zionists, revisionist Zionists, and the revisionist Zionists are kind of like openly aggressive, belligerent, colonial ones, as opposed to the ones who kind of are more liberal or labor-ish. And he talks about, natives will always resist colonists. He's very clear that this is a project of colonialism. So it was founded by Jabotinsky. Yep. Sorry.
No, yeah, I think it was important that you included that. And like you said, I mean, this is part of a long political tradition of militant Zionist organizing. They have no qualms. Like they believe that they must, replace every single Arab. They believe, Betar says it themselves when somebody posted a list of all of the children that have died in Gaza, or not even the children, I think just those under the age of 1. Betar responded, not enough. We demand more blood in Gaza. And so that just goes to show, how far right they are, which, seems ridiculous to even use, considering, I believe all Zionists are essentially far right, but even on that spectrum, they're worse and worse. And they're part of a network of far right Zionist groups that frequently overlap in membership, not just here in New York City, but around, the country. I know that they're part of the same slate for the Zionist Organization of America, along with the Jewish Defense League,
right.
Which was considered a Zionist a terrorist organization by the United States up until recently. And,
and that's what Ben Gvir is a part of.
Exactly. And they're known for killing Alex Sauda, a Palestinian activist in California in the 1980s. And nobody's ever been brought to justice for that. Nobody's ever been extradited. People pretty much know that they fled to Israel and they've, evaded accountability. And so, are we going to wait until we have another Alex Sauda here in New York City? I mean, like they're basically making these threats to our faces. It happened then. I mean, they bombed his office and they killed him. And this is the exact kind of stuff that we believe that they're capable of, and basically telling us that, they want to do today.
Right.
Alex was the director of the Arab American Anti-Discrimination Committee. And yeah, to this day, people know that his killers have never faced any justice.
Yeah. So, okay, let's take a look at some of these things, then we'll get into what so here it is. Okay. So you're they describe you after you just so this is okay, moving forward. This is after I guess you filed a lawsuit. So Jerusalem Post tweets that you filed this lawsuit. Co-founder Nerdeen Kiswani, co-founder of the radical pro-Palestinian activist group Within Our Lifetime, has filed a lawsuit against Betar USA over its purported campaign to, quote, threaten, intimidate, and violate their civil rights. And then Betar replies, Nerdeen Kiswani, the most viscous Jew hater, which I guess you're viscous. You should put that on your business card, viscous Jew hater. They obviously meant vicious. Jew hater in America has made every Zionist lawyer happy today. We can't wait for discovery. You and your capo lawyers hate Zionists. We are headquartered in Israel and proud Americans. We support the government of America and will not let terrorists intimidate us. Nerdeen Kiswani must be the first American to be denaturalized. This case is discovered. Okay, they may be American, but they are not very good at grammar and spelling and vocabulary. So this case's discovery, there's supposed to be an apostrophe between the E and the S. Discovery will ensure that Kiswani hates Jews and dogs. Okay, so there's that. And obviously, if you were a dog hater, I would have to have talked to you before the show. And we'd have to have a reconciliation because I have a beloved dog.
I think you both have dogs here and you're both Jews.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Oh my God. Betar, well, they would just call us capos, but I guess they're and the dog, they have to come up with a self-loathing dog term for this. But yeah, and here they are again, the capo lawyer of Nerdeen Kiswani, who terrorizes Jews and New Yorkers, and the NYPD wants to ban Zionism in New York. Jews have the right to free speech, which is funny because if Jews have the right to free speech, they probably should be allowed to defend whomever they want without being called the capo. But also they have bad Judar, I guess, because Eric, I mean, not that I care, but Eric, you're the Jewish one, right?
I think they met me, but they mixed us up, I think.
Yeah. And this was, I mean, I understand why they'd be upset because Eric tweeted, said, in 1871, Congress passed the Anti-KKK Enforcement Act to stop private persons and groups from terrorizing the population out of exercising their basic democratic rights. This law was necessary to enforce the rights won through the Civil War. Today, Betar USA believes that far-right control of the White House and Congress gives it authority to terrorize pregnant Palestinian refugees who oppose Israel's genocide against Palestine. With this litigation, Nerdeen Kiswani is enforcing the Enforcement Act. We aim to end Betar USA's campaign of terror and vindicate everyone's basic democratic rights. So now you, as being part of this legal team, well, can you just tell us about the KKK act? And also, was this an aha moment? Like, were you guys like eating Chinese food out of cartons, which is always how they showed lawyers doing late night briefs or whatever, and have an idea or what happened? And while you do that, I'm going to listen to you, but I have to grab my own witness. So keep going.
No, you're good. Yeah, I mean, this wasn't so much an aha moment. I mean, Betar has been on our radar. I obviously knew about Betar from, just knowing about the history of Zionism. I want to note quickly before I get into this that, like, ironically, Betar is a deeply anti-Semitic organization, right? Betar has a very dark view of what Jews in the world are, right? Their website says that their goal is to create a, quote, normal, healthy Jew, right? Zhabatinsky was horrified by the state of diasporic Judaism and believed that Jews would were parasites on other civilized societies, and was a fascist, was a friend of Mussolini. Right. And the organization that he created is openly fascist. And I should say, I mean, they can say whatever they want. I'm a lawyer, like I'm a constitutional rights lawyer. They can do whatever they want, but they have crossed a line here. And, everyone else has the right to call out their ideas as the odious, sort of horrible, anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab, anti-Muslim, and anti-Jewish ideas that they are. But this isn't really about their ideas so much, right? Like that's not what it's at issue in this case. This law, the Anti-KKK Enforcement Act, has been on the books since the post-Civil War era, and was designed for precisely this sort of situation, when you have groups of people who object to the full inclusion of another group of people based on their race and conspire to take, X, Y, or Z actions in order to prevent them from taking advantage of those rights. The classic case is the Klan and racial intimidation and violence in order to prevent the newly freed Southern Black individuals from voting. That, though, is not the legal concept, though, is broader. The 13th Amendment, which prohibits slavery, is a broader amendment than just like you can't own a slave, right? It prohibits the badges and incidents of slavery, which are all the things that a society creates around slavery, right? It's not just slavery is not an institution that exists on its own. Racial subjugation is the engine upon which slavery can survive. And so the goal of the 13th and 14th Amendments and the 15th Amendment were to eradicate those goals and to prevent them from re-arising by creating legal mechanisms, both in the powers of the federal government through the 14th Amendment, but also by these civil statutes that were created in order to give people the right to sue in court, in federal court, when their rights are interfered with by either private or public actors. 1985 sister statute, 1983, is a commonly known statute. It's what you use to sue police officers for excessive use of force or whatever. 1985 is a similar concept. It's the civil version. So when Betar gets together with the other defendants and their co-conspirators, and they say, hey, we're going to harass, intimidate, threaten, assault this Palestinian woman because we don't want her to be able to walk down the streets of New York or to gather with other people or to access, the public areas of public accommodation. That violates her 13th Amendment rights and her 14th Amendment rights. You have a right to interstate travel, which includes walking down the street. You have the right to public accommodations. But there's also a right under the 13th Amendment to simply be free of racial harassment and intimidation, right? That is, there's a long history of that. Like the very act of doing that is a badge and incident of slavery. It is a tool. It is a vector of racial subjugation. Betar has done like a quintessential violation of this act, very similar to what the Klan has done in the past. 1985 gives a private cause of action to hold them accountable for that. I want to note one other thing that we also brought that people might miss if they read if you happen to read the long complaint. There's also it's another statute, 1986, which we brought claims under, which is people who know about a conspiracy to do something like this and have the power to stop it but don't are also liable, right? This is a very, very, very robust statute that is really designed to prevent precisely this situation from happening. Betar has acted with impunity and has been emboldened by the administration and its access to the administration, which we know from court documents exists. And they're at a particularly weak point right now, right? With the Attorney General's report, the settlement, which essentially concludes exactly what we're saying they did. They say it in general terms. We're saying, yeah, they did it to Nerdeen. So, we're feeling, we're good. We're going to litigate this. We're going to go through everything. We expect them to fight back, as is their right. But I just want to be clear that this is like, at the end of the day, there's going to be lots of accusations, I think, traded back and forth, like, oh, you want to silence us, whatever. The difference, right, is that true threats are not protected speech. You can't cross that line. And giving people a beeper to go and assault a pregnant woman because you find the idea that a Palestinian individual would have a platform and could say things that you don't like, that is not protected. That's not free speech.
Right. And here's the so this is the thing that was like emblematic, right, of the threat. Am I correct in this tweet? So here it is.
Many, yeah.
What'd you say?
One of many tweets.
One of many, yeah. So, and just so this says this is, sorry, everyone, this is disgusting, but we just want to show. So you've terrorized America and New York for much too long. Capital M again. All right. We've had enough and will not stop. You hate America. You hate Jews, and we are here and won't be silent. $1,800 to anyone who hands that jihadi a beeper. So that is, I mean, okay, so that is like, there's a difference between that and saying something, because it's your, like, vile speech is protected, right? But what's not protected is, like, is it that you are offering people money to do a certain thing? Is that also complicated? Or is it just that you're incentivizing people going up to someone, which is like harassment, as opposed to
everything that they said, they're including the horrible, jihadi moniker that they've put is protected speech. The part that is not, right, is where you get to what's called a true threat. Now, whether or not that particular sentence gives rise to that, like, we're not litigating any particular sentence, right? The case is not about whether a particular, like, this is not a threat case. We're not suing them for threatening her. The threats, however, are emblematic of this conspiracy, right? The Betar and the individuals associated with it, and hatch a plan to drive Nerdeen out of public life. Right. They both say it out loud on social media and hold themselves out as providing, what are implied to be incendiary devices to go and give to her. And then there are actual instances, and these are detailed in the complaint, of physical confrontations with Nerdeen, where people try to hand her a beeper, they chase her down the street. I mean, they corner her by a building. Like, this is not about necessarily their speech. Their speech is what they say online is an important part of it, and it gives context, and it really is, like, kind of happening in real time, and they're claiming credit for these physical actions. But where they cross the line in their words, I don't know, and I don't really need to know, and I don't, it doesn't, that's not necessarily what matters here. All we do know for sure is that some of this speech for sure crosses the line such that, it's not protected. But regardless, whether you couch it in protected speech, if you go out and you're like, get that Palestinian woman, and you physically go and do it, like, chasing someone down the street is not speech, right? Yeah. You can't do that. So we're talking about this conduct, and their racial animus is evidenced by their speech, right? That's what's clear in these tweets.
Right. We have some more examples. I think A04, A05. Let's see. She sued us for this post. Beepers are worse than globalized intifada. Nerdeen Kiswani will be removed for denaturalization. Zionists, the FBI, and civil rights and ICE Gov can't wait for discovery. Palestinians have called Betar Jews as a KKK terror group. Okay. And then I want to actually shift a little bit. So someone else who got on this bandwagon is the great genocidal, absolutely despicable Randy Fine, who said, we need to go back and review every single naturalized citizenship application for 35 years. And for those who are a threat to America, denaturalize and deport all of them now. And now, was this before or after Randy Fine? Then after this, this is then Betar, of course, said we must start the denaturalization with Nerdeen Kiswani. Why is she in America? This was before. This was after the incident, the dog incident, right? And before we get into that, I have to bring my prop because I wanted to help show how this show and our guests.
I should note while you're getting your dog that, like, I don't know, like, I'm a lawyer. I think that people who have claims brought against them should get a lawyer. Is my first word of sort of wisdom for the folks that may hear this. But Nerdeen has First Amendment rights, and conspiring with the government to threaten her with denaturalization in order to silence her is a problematic thing that is, like, not legal, right? Oh. These are not legal things that they're talking about, right? But they don't seem to care about that.
Well, I just wanted to show a dog who's very in solidarity because we're going to get into this. So Bucky is so upset. He's running away from me because he objects to being hijacked, having his dog identity hijacked in the name of anti-Zionism. So that Bucky is an ally. And Bucky does not want anything to do with Randy Fine. And you'll see why we're bringing that up. But But yeah, Randy Fine is trying to talk about human shields. He's trying to use like the opposite of that, animal adorables to launder his Zionism and his hate, and Bucky's playing with it, angrily biting a toy because that's how angry he is about it. But it is really disgusting. So can you talk about how this happened, this dog drama?
So first of all, I mean, I thought the right wing was all for protecting comedians and jokes and saying that,
you're right,
the woke mob army should not try to stop us from doing that. So, I was just making a joke, as were many people in New York City, when the snow started to melt and uncovered all this dog poop across the sidewalks and streets that, owners have not been picking up. And, people were just kind of harping on that, on people bringing like, gigantic dogs into indoor spaces, not really like, being aware of people around them, kids around them, stuff like that. And then also the other jokes we saw after Mamdani became mayor, people were saying, oh, New York City's coming to Sharia law. We're going to have to wear burqas and all of these things and blah, blah, blah. So I just basically took two hyper local discourse conversations and put them into one. My fault. I'm too tapped in. I'm too and I'm the zeitgeist. People don't know what's going on outside of New York City. I really did not anticipate it. Didn't think that tweet would get any traction or attention outside of New York. And I wasn't even I wasn't even joking about banning dogs. I was just saying, oh, finally, other people are seeing it from that perspective. To be clear, I'm equally allergic to both cats and dogs, and Islam actually venerates cats. So Islam loves cats, and dogs are not haram. Right. There's probably
Put that back. Sorry, Brad, put that tweet back, please. Thank you. So there's Nerdeen with her Randy Fine provoking tweet. Finally, NYC is coming to Islam. Dogs definitely have a place in society, just not as indoor pets. Like we've said all along, they're unclean, which is obviously you're not really making a dog statement there. This is not an official decree. You're poking everyone, fun at everyone. And what's the word? You're triggering all these people, right? Who are talking about Sharia law. And it's a great way to own the Zionists, kind of own the Zios. So this turns into a huge thing because then Randy Fine tweets about this. And does he not actually quote tweet you? Is that why people? Yeah. So he doesn't quote tweet you. He just says something like, if we have to choose between Muslims and dogs, we'll take dogs. And that becomes.
And then in his reply, he includes my tweet.
Okay.
So he does direct all of those people to me.
Okay. So he does. Okay.
Yeah.
So, wow, he was really helping signal boost you.
This is just so tired, though. It's these people are unhinged.
Yeah. They're totally unhinged.
No, they're foaming at the mouth. And it's just first of all, just calm down for a second. Let's all be adults about this and just chill out. If I wanted people to take my ideas seriously, this would not be the way to do it. You're a sitting member of Congress. And get your, this is not what you should be focusing on. And Betar, which is a political advocacy organization, for better or for worse, spell things right? It's just it's kind of a clown show, and yet it is so dangerous. These people have power, right? Betar is in deep with these government officials, and that's a congressperson, and they're throw out all Muslims because they don't want dogs because of a joke tweet. It's 2002 again. It's literally it's just, we've gone complete. We're just back. It's identical preemptive strikes. It's we're just in 2002 and we're doing it all over again.
Yeah.
It's a race to the bottom. It feels like that's what's getting them more views, what's getting them more support. I mean, Laura Loomer was this close to saying she's having dog orgies, basically. And her responses to me, she's like, I kiss my dogs on the lips and I cuddle with all four of them in bed. And then posted a picture of her tongue licking her dog and was like, does this make you mad? And I'm like, I feel bad for the dog.
The dog,
actually.
exactly.
I feel bad.
And there's no consent also. Yeah.
No, that's a universal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, so let's show that ridiculous tweet, I guess. Well, we already showed his holding your tweet, which was ridiculous. But
well, he's passing a thing, right? Like he's trying to pass a bill or something. Like
I didn't even know it went that far.
Protect dogs. Like
I thought. Oh yeah, he is.
Yeah.
He is trying to see again. He's weaponizing Zionists. Try to ruin so many great things, including dogs. Keep your filthy paws off our dogs.
Katie, there's a video there if you want to play that.
Oh yeah, great. Thank you.
This is a picture of of what I quote.
All right. This is Randy Fine, disgusting Florida congressman who wishes Hiroshima, literally like openly hopes for Hiroshima to happen to Gaza. And here he is with, British Tommy Robinson, British far-right extremist, xenophobe, racist, Islamophobe. I'm sure anti-Semite. He just may be putting that aside for like an alliance of convenience against Muslims. So here he is talking about this holding it up like he's on Antique Roadshow or something. Okay.
This is a picture of what I quote tweeted, and yet most of the media left it out. They focused on my comment, which frankly, taken in isolation, you'd ask, why would anyone be saying this? But when you're responding to this, it makes all the sense in the world. Because what she's telling me is I have to choose between my dog and her and people like her and the community she represents. She can leave and go home where they hate dogs. This is the United States of America. We love our dogs. We're going to keep our dogs.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess I wonder if he's probably, when I feel like this has happened so much, talk about repeating the zeitgeist and everything. And this is so 10 years ago or 20 years ago. I feel like one of the things that happens so much with these people is they do something vile and you'd think it would be disqualifying, but then they make money off of it. Like the guy who killed Renee Good, right? Like once that video was released of him calling her like an effing bitch, then there are all these fundraisers. He's not a politician, but it's a similar thing, right? So like this guy says something so offensive, I don't want to compare like vile statements, especially since we're talking about free speech, to killing Renee Good, but it's a similar phenomenon of getting like monetarily rewarded off of vile action. But yeah, it is. I mean, now I want to make a whole documentary about dogs in Islam because it's not a straightforward thing. There's a lot of religious debate that I've listened to as a dog person.
And they're not like forbidden or anything. It's just like if they lick you
out of the home.
It's also like a this is a common sort of thing that happens among American households.
Yeah, of
where
course.
Like people from different communities are gonna be like, get your dog off my couch. Or we don't think dogs like, but also it was a joke. Like it wasn't even a real comment. Like it's just like there's like a bill in Congress about your joke tweet. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, that is really absurd. I think that's I didn't want to brag, but I do want to show you something. So I think we're in good company, you and I, Nerdeen, because Betar also tweeted out, radical extremist capo added to our list of Jews we recommend not to be admitted entrance to Israel. We confirm Sunday at the Knesset, Katie Halper will be among those we recommend not be allowed in Lot, the Jewish state, ! And then says she claims no women were assaulted, refers to Hamas as freedom fighters, and consistently states that Israel, not Hamas, was responsible for the events of October 7th, characterizing it as a Holocaust. Some of that's, I said Israel's mostly, but whatever. That's fine if they want to kind of misrepresent some of my quotes, but the gist of it is right. I definitely say Israel engages in systematic sexual abuse and rape, and Hamas didn't. But what's funny is I'm added to this prestigious list of Jews who they predict won't be allowed into Israel. And this list includes like Tony Judd, who has been dead for 20 years, Adrian Rich. I'm like, yep, you're really been insightful, really brilliant on that insight. I agree. She won't be. I mean, because she's no longer with us. But any final words that people want to share? I think we do have something. Brad, do we have something on this bill that I have to admit, I missed this. Okay. Congressman Fine introduces legislation to protect puppies from Sharia. And it has this adorable thing that says, don't tread on me. Okay. Washington, D.C. Congressman Fine introduced the Protecting Puppies from Sharia Act. The bill was filed in response to comments from an advisor to Zohran Mamdani, the mayor of New York City, who stated that because owning a dog as a pet violates Islamic law, it should be banned. As part of her comment, she said New York City is coming to Islam.
That's a Bad Girls reference, by the way.
Oh, really?
Nobody's getting that. Yeah, they were like, "Oh, girl, we going to Islam." Like there was like a whole, like it's literally like a meme within a meme.
Video.
Yeah,
I know. This legislation would prohibit federal funds from being provided to any state or local government that bans dogs as pets. Islamic law cannot be forced on the United States of America. It is the right of all Americans to own a dog. In America,
what about the cities that ban pit bulls? Does that count? Is that
it's good. That's a good question.
What about New York City landlords that ban pets?
Yeah,
yeah, Randy, or Florida ones. I'm sure they're Florida ones, right? In America, we will not allow anyone to tell us that we cannot have dogs. My bill protects Americans' right to own a dog and would not allow federal funding to be given to any state or local government that bans them as haram, which you don't, by the way, as very clearly it's not haram. There are 57 countries that are Sharia compliant. The United States will not become the 58th. Given the choice between puppies and Sharia, I choose puppies every time. Our tax dollars should not fund any state that chooses to ban dogs as haram. We cannot allow Sharia law to continue to infiltrate our communities, undermine our constitution, and threaten our way of life. Enough is enough. Oh, so Congressman Chip Roy, I guess, chimed in also. So there are other ones. Oh, my gosh.
You know, I've changed my mind. I'm actually delighted by this.
Yeah, I think this is actually...
This is funny. Like, this is like, it's just, that's funny.
I think they should be forced. Bucky's like literally running around right now. He's upset. I think they should be forced to fund, like give a donation to it. You hear that? That's his pause. They should be forced to give a donation to the SPCA. Every congressperson who signed that.
Shoot a dog?
What'd you say?
Didn't Kristi Noem shoot a dog?
Yes, she did.
Yeah,
she wrote about it.
And they killed 97% of dogs and animals in Gaza, and nobody's talking about that. 97% of Israel's of Gaza's animals have been killed by Israel.
You know what you just remind me of? There's also a video of a kid in a random kid in Israel throwing off an Israeli newspaper throwing a cat off of a roof. And I'm not a cat person, but that's not okay. I don't wish ill on cats. I'm just saying, so maybe Randy Fine should go and save Judaism from this guy before he ruins. I don't know. That's insane. Well, any final things that you want to make sure people know about? This has been great. Thank you so much.
We actually have a GoFundMe or a Chuffed crowd fundraising thing that I can share where people can contribute to this lawsuit. So I'll share that. And, ultimately, this is about, like I said before, it's not just about me. It's about drawing a line. People and groups that believe that they can threaten and intimidate Palestinian activists should understand that there's legal consequences. And if intimidation works, against me today, it's just gonna, further embolden them. And, it's something that we need to stand up against. And clearly they're getting support from people in the government, people like Randy Fine, who has no issue elevating lies like this. What's he gonna do tomorrow? And one thing Betar was wrong about is I wouldn't be the first Palestinian to be denaturalized. They actually did that to a Palestinian activist, Rasmi Auda, a few years ago. But it would be the first one. I would be the first one under the Trump administration. And, I don't think they're above, targeting people, violating our rights. I mean, we see it happen every day to make these kinds of statements. So, this is very serious. And, we can't just be on the defense. When that happens, we have to go on the offense as well, which is, part of what insisting our rights, to live without being harassed, without being attacked, without having groups conspire to take our rights away from us, is about.
Yeah. And also, I think it's just really important what you said, because people, Zionists, like Christian and Jewish Zionists, are so used to, they're so entitled and coddled because they're so used to having every desire of theirs like coddled to, and people walking on eggshells so they're not targeted by them, because they have these incredibly organized things like, anti-Semitism watch, stop anti-Semitism. And so I think people are really surprised when the good guys, like the underdogs, I was going to say, but the good guys, the people who are on the side of
underdogs.
Underdogs. Yeah. I just don't want to trigger Bucky. He's already feels too involved. No, but like, I think people are so used to the power, the elites winning, and so used to people running away from defending the rights of people who are literally just speaking out against the killing of children, whatever it is that gets people to call them vicious, viscous anti-Semites and Jew haters, that it's really important that you guys are doing this work, because we have to set a precedent. Because I think people, I know this, I mean, I've had people come at me say, you're going to be famous tomorrow, not for good reasons. And like, they're just very used to shutting people up. They don't really know what to do when they're not able to scare people, because so few people, understandably, I mean, we are the many and they're the few, but they are the ones with like the good, fancy law firms behind them often.
Well, increasingly less so. I mean, like, we're not fighting this alone. We have co-counsel from a major civil rights, operation that's been willing to help out. And I'm finding that there's a lot of, like, the tide is on our side here.
Yeah, it is.
And this law is super important for people to learn about, because the rise of right-wing violence, I mean, you guys were talking about it earlier in the first segment too, right? Just this phenomenon, this renewed like fascism in the United States. We have legal tools that were given to us by the generations before who fought fascist movements in the United States. We're going to use them, and we hope that everyone else sort of recognizing that, like, not all is lost yet, and it won't be if we don't just lay down and let this happen. Yeah,
that's very true. Yeah. So you basically were like the cherry on top, or the of what I was going to say. So until now, was what I was going to say, where people are finally like, it's just the tide is turning. So I'm really grateful to the work that you do, and come back and give us an update. And if you want a canine witness, I'll bring Bucky in.
I'll let both my dogs in next time and just like let them, I guess, I don't know, lick the side of my face while I'm talking. Yeah. That's what it means to be an American.
But, I just want to say one final thing, because Nerdeen, you're very outspoken. And, I think a lot of people probably praise you for your bravery, right? And I just want to say, I'm not comparing myself to you at all, because it's not comparable, but I will say that, and maybe you and I are different. I guess I'll say about myself, sometimes I think people underestimate how scary it is to be targeted, even though I let it roll off my back, at least like functionally let it roll off my back. It's not nothing to have people like conspire about you, to make threats about you, to say to say vicious, odious things about you, especially when you know that they have a lot of power. So I want to kind of like offer you, I don't know what the word is, but like appreciation for taking this on, because I think sometimes when people are very sure of themselves in a good way and self-assured, and they know that they're on the right side and speak with a lot of conviction, I think people underestimate how it doesn't mean it's easy to have that stuff come at you.
Yeah, I really resonate with that. I do think, that really hits the nail on the head. So I'm sure you experience it similarly to capture, exactly what I'm feeling. And it sounds like a cliche, but it's really not. I mean, it is scary, but I'm really, I think about the kids, the 160, whether it's 165 schoolgirls that were killed in Iran, whether it's the tens of thousands of Palestinian children killed in Gaza. And, I just say comparatively,
exactly.
I need to suck it up. I need to figure it out. I'm not getting the complete worst end of the stick here. I'm still relatively privileged as someone, not under the threat of Israeli bombs constantly. And I want to use that to advocate for those who are facing the most direct consequences of colonialism. And that's what enables me to be able to shake that fear off enough for me to be able to speak out. But yeah, I mean, every day, it's a choice you make every single day. Am I going to be brave today? And ultimately, with everything we're seeing around the world, all the horrors, the answer really can't be anything else but yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's really inspiring what you're doing, and it's really inspiring to see what both of you are doing in different but overlapping ways. So happy to have you guys on, and definitely let us know what we can do to support you. We'll put a link to the fundraisers. And come back on and update us, and we'll have a whole slideshow prepared. Yeah.
Definitely. Thank
Thanks
you
for
both so
having us.
much.
Thank you so much. And
Thank you for
I
that.
also we didn't have a lot of time talking about this, but I hope your family is okay, Nerdeen, both here and back in,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, they are, but with how things are going, who knows?
Right.
I'm just praying for the world right now. But yeah, thanks again, Katie. And thanks so much, Chris, to you, to Eric, everyone on the legal team. I mean, that's the big part. And that's what the fundraiser is for too. I mean, people know we're on the right side of history, but who's willing to actually take action and put those words into action.
Yeah.
And that's where, sometimes the many becomes few. And so we're hoping to change that.
Yeah. Well, great. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a great night. Bye. That was really wonderful, really inspiring. And I'm just, it's so important to hear these stories and see how people are chipping away at the, it's the same, obviously, like Nerdeen said, what we're seeing here pales in comparison to what we're seeing in Gaza, what we're seeing in Iran, but it is the domestic front of the same struggle. So I think that it's so important that it's so important to do the thing that Nerdeen is doing and that Chris is helping her do and all those lawyers. So really commend her. And you really are, I mean, Betar is just so odious, and I'm sure they have no idea how to deal with this because they're used to scaring everyone and getting everyone to run away from them. Okay, well, speaking of inspiring, I'm very excited to be speaking once again with someone who's graced our presence on the Useful Idiots podcast. But I think he is making his Katie Halper Show debut. So, very historic moment. I'm sure this is going to be written down in his diary. Extreme, but I am really extremely excited to bring on to the show Sina Toossi, who is a senior non-resident fellow at the Center for International Policy, where he focuses on U.S.-Iran relations. Welcome, Sina. Oh, you're muted. Sorry. Do we unmute him or does he?
Yeah, apologies for that.
No.
Hey, Katie, how's it going?
Good,
so happy
thanks,
to be
you.
on. That was very kind of you, what you just said.
Oh, yeah.
I find you very inspiring. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, thank you for coming. I mean, I'm sure this is a very difficult time for anyone who cares about like humanity and human beings. And maybe this is a little like uncouth and not the way that other people start out shows, but I always like to kind of establish people's personal relationship to issues. What is your relationship to Iran? Can you talk about your family connection to Iran?
Yeah, so I was born in Iran. I did grow up here in the US, but much of my extended family is still there. So like grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, and it's very scary time, when we have trouble getting in touch with them. There's internet disconnections and super terrifying. What can I say? Yeah, I mean, my uncle, my grandmother, they were talking about how, there's explosions, all the shaking. They don't really know what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it seems like there's not a lot of options for people right now. And I just want to, I guess, so start off by offering you my my thoughts are with you and with your family, and I can't imagine what it's like to have family living in a place like that. When I say a place like that, I mean it's increasing the number of places that we're talking about, right? Because it's living in a place where the West is launching totally unjustifiable war, and not even going through the motions of doing it through like legal means.
Right.
But what do you, as I guess, think that the most important thing wanted to ask you if there are certain things that you think are really missing from the mainstream media's coverage of what we're experiencing and observing right now?
Yeah, I mean, many things. First of all, we know about all the failings of the mainstream media heading up to the 2003 Iraq War, all the manufacturing of consent, the failure to hold the then Bush administration's claims to account. And just overall with Iran, I would argue that the state of Iran coverage in the mainstream media is quite poor. Someone who follows Iran very closely, and I try to follow it very objectively, mainstream outlets constantly get many things wrong, constantly are, giving into certain narratives, whether that, very warmongering narratives, Israeli narratives. And, in the lead up to this war, I would say that because of a lot of this carefully curated narratives, really, there was this perception that, Iran is a paper tiger, Iran is weak, Iran performed very poorly in the June 2025 war, performed very poorly in those missile exchanges with Israel in 2024, when in reality, that was not the case. But I mean, it helped the Israel lobby and these hawkish warmongering forces in the US to kind of present this narrative, push this narrative very hard in Congress, in the mainstream press, this network of think tanks and analysts, and what we've seen that, there was this idea that, yeah, this would be an easy war, that, Iran is overplaying its hand, et cetera, et cetera. And look, now the whole region has blown up. Iran, as we predicted, as many people predicted, as was just predictable. I mean, Iran, proved its resilience, proved it can hit back hard in all those military exchanges I just talked about. And now we're seeing this situation where, we were told that there's going to be massive revolution if America attacks, to liberate the Iranian people. We were told that Iran is not going to be able to disrupt the Strait of Hormuz, to hit back in the Persian Gulf, to hit Israel hard. And now we're seeing, it seems to me like pretty much every U.S. military base in West Asia has been struck. Major radar installations have been struck. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. The cost that that's going to have for the global economy is going to be immense, and it's going to be a cost that's going to be accumulating and growing over time. Israel's getting hit hard, and it's just total mess and quagmire. I mean, Iran is obviously suffering, and it's being attacked by two nuclear states, and it's obviously not good for them or the people there. But we've had this situation where they're holding out and they're hitting back hard, and I don't think there's going to be any ease. There's not going to be any military solution, obviously, for the U.S., but I don't think there's going to be, the U.S. just doesn't really have any good options at all.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's so much media to respond to, so many media clips that are, out of this world. So wanted to show you one with a video of Steve Witkoff, U.S. Special Envoy in the Middle East, making some really interesting comments defending the U.S., ending the negotiations on Sean Hannity's show Monday night. So let's take a listen and then have you respond.
They were proud of it. They were proud that they had evaded all sorts of oversight protocols to get to a place where they could deliver 11 nuclear bombs.
What I wouldn't do to be a fly on the wall in that room, because, Steve, you're a negotiator. You've run the most successful businesses, built some of the most beautiful golf courses. It defies all logic and reason for them to sit there as if Midnight Hammer never happened and dictate to you that the one thing that President Trump insisted on, they can't get a nuclear weapon, they're going to go forward anyway. How stupid are they? Were they? They're done. They're gone now.
Well, it was pretty silly, but they thought they could strong arm us. President Trump sent me and Jared there to really determine on his behalf whether they were serious about doing a deal that addressed his objectives, which are elimination of their missile program, elimination of their advocacy and support for proxies, which is destabilizing the entire Middle East, elimination of their Navy so we can have freedom of the seas and not be threatened with the shutdown of the Gulf of Hormuz, and finally, no nuclear enrichment that can get them to weapons grade, which means no nuclear bomb. And we went in there and tried to make a fair deal with them, and it was very, very clear that it was going to be impossible, probably by the end of the second meeting. But we then went back for the third meeting just to give it the last college try. And of course, they thought they wanted us to report positivity. It was not positive, that meeting.
Yeah. So I should have given a trigger warning. But what would you like? What are your thoughts?
Yeah,
on that?
this guy is a total fraud. He's very incompetent at his job as like America's chief diplomat, obviously totally unqualified. obviously him
But
and
those
Jared
golf
Kushner.
courses, those great golf courses, aren't those a great qualification?
Yeah, Jesus. Like, I mean, and just the whole conflict of interest, or I mean, he clearly is a very ideological actor too. Him and Jared Kushner are, to my understanding, both devout Zionists and very ideological. And
Yep.
you see them two and Netanyahu in a meeting deciding our foreign policy. It's absurd. And the American people, I mean, it's infuriating, really, if you care about America and our country and the lives of Americans, that this diplomatic effort was a total farce. And it's been proven to be a farce twice now, because they were also engaged in these rounds of negotiations back leading up to the June war, and again now. And they've attacked now after this round of negotiations they had last week. And to his point, trying to pin the blame on Iranians, I mean, it really is the peak of hubris and arrogance, and also, talking down to the American people, talking down to the rest of the world, because everyone knows the facts. I mean, the facts are that there was a nuclear deal that America left under Trump, trying to negotiate a better one. He imposed, this unprecedented economic warfare on Iran since 2018, all kinds of covert action, trying to destabilize the country. But Iran still came to the negotiating table after, all these escalations against it. And by all accounts, the deal that was on the table last week was actually a stronger deal than the Obama era deal in terms of like the non-proliferation merits of it. So Iran was willing to forego like accumulating enriched uranium at the levels it was under the Obama era deal. It was apparently willing to halt uranium enrichment, agreed to some kind of regional fuel in consortium. These are huge concessions. And yet, they still attacked Iran. So, I mean, the idea that they wanted a deal, they're trying to, go on Fox News, the Sean Hannity, and try to sell this idea to the American people that, look, we were good faith negotiators. The Iranians were trying to strong arm us. Like, that's absurd. And it's a lie. And the reality is that the Trump administration has destroyed American credibility when it comes to negotiating with any country, really, but especially Iran. And they just entered out of their own hubris this catastrophic war that I think is ultimately going to be very self-defeating for America and American empire, really.
Yeah. That is, I mean, I think some people are hoping for that, right? That it'll maybe teach the American empire a lesson. But of course, it's also very likely that given that the United States and Israel are nuclear countries, it's pretty scary. I had a guest on this weekend on Sunday who's an ex-Israeli. He's from Israel. He lives in London, and he wrote a book about the Israeli army. And of course, he was saying how scared he is of Israel using the Samson option, which is, their unofficial option of using a nuclear weapon that they don't officially admit to having, but basically everyone knows that they have it.
Yeah, I mean, it's terrifying. I wouldn't really put anything past them in that, including nuclear weapons, but, that would be such a trampling of all the international norms that have existed for many decades now, and it would represent such an escalation that would go beyond Iran. Like, at that point, Russia would have a green light to use nuclear weapons against Ukraine. China would have a green light to use them, where it wants. I mean, it would be a totally new world order that would ultimately be very self-defeating again for America. I mean, not that these people may care, or they clearly have no foresight or long-term vision, and the Israelis just are, gung-ho and acting with total impunity. But I mean, I think this war, I mean, the Iranian people are suffering the most, and they're going to suffer the most, and the damages that are being incurred on Iran are very catastrophic. But they're hitting back very hard, and especially in this Gulf of, the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz, not the Gulf of Hormuz, like this, ignoramus Steve Witkoff just said in that interview. This is the key choke point of the global economy. This is where a lot of, our hydrocarbon resources or energy and natural gas comes that fuels the economies of many, many countries. And Iran is right there, and Iran has had the capability to shut it down and close it, and is attacking the infrastructure of these U.S. allies there, and the military bases of America there that have been used to attack Iran. And this is a huge leverage that Iran has, and it can continue this for a long time. And it's going to be very hard to disable this ability of Iran. And to the extent that they're trying to destabilize Iran, that's only going to contribute to the instability of continued and lasting instability of the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. So they're really, they're in a quagmire. And I think that Iran is escalating to get a more favorable diplomatic settlement, get a ceasefire and a favorable diplomatic settlement. But it's hard to see, what's possible at this stage. But yeah, I mean, this is, as of now, it's just a total mess.
Well, I want to play, speaking of mess, I want to play some clips of Marco Rubio. Here is what he had to say about the Iranian leadership.
Iran, despite years of sanction. Imagine a year from now or a year and a half from now the capabilities they would have to inflict damage on us. It's an unacceptable risk, especially in the hands of a regime that's run by radical clerics. The Ayatollah was a radical cleric. That entire regime is led by radical clerics who don't make geopolitical decisions. They make decisions on the basis of theology, their view of theology, which is an apocalyptic one. That has to be taken very seriously as well. So that was the purpose for what this operation is all about. That's what it's focused on.
So, okay, he's saying that they have an apocalyptic view. They're a theocracy. What about the things that, for instance, like Mike Huckabee said recently, where he talked about that Israel should take it all of the Middle East?
Exactly. I mean, actually, Iran's foreign policy, which I've studied for many years, is actually very hard-nosed realpolitik. Ideology plays a role, but at the end of it, that's what it is. Despite the religious rhetoric and some of the on the outside that is used, that's what it is. It's balance of power politics, it's realpolitik. But the tremendous hypocrisy where you can, like Mike Huckabee, like you said last week, is a Christian Zionist. Christian Zionism is really based on an apocalyptic messianic ideology, that their whole support for Israel is really grounded in bringing about rapture, bringing about the second coming of Jesus, on which, Jews have to be converted or killed as in part of some big war. And so it's really anti-Semitic ultimately at the core too. But, Mike Huckabee is an ardent believer in this. And he just, in his interview with Tucker Carlson last week, said, yeah, the Bible gives them the right to the whole region. I mean, this is like it's like an ISIS level actual end times belief that is motivating all of this war and conflict. And I think you can very objectively and fairly say that a driving force in American politics for these endless wars in the Middle East, for Israel, for getting in these conflicts, is this belief that's common amongst evangelicals and a big part of the American electorate.
Right.
And apparently today there was also something that was going around about how some U.S. generals or they were giving some addresses to their units talking about this war against Iran is like a war of Armageddon and framing it in all these religious terms. Very scary stuff. But we have a lot of these crazies, as well in our country and in the U.S. And America's just so much more powerful and is a global empire. And, it can do all this harm.
Right. And I mean, there's all this hypocrisy and inconsistency, right? Because we brag about being a country that separates church and state. And then you have people making it very clear that that's not an actual separation. I mean, I am kind of curious about what makes, here it is. Okay. Of course. Right. So thanks, Brad.
Yeah, this was that. Yeah.
U.S. commander said Trump anointed by Jesus to attack Iran. And this is Newsweek. So, some U.S. military leaders are telling troops that the Iran war is part of God's divine plan, quote, God's divine plan, end quote, featuring President Trump and Jesus, according to a religious freedom advocacy group. In response to Newsweek's request for comment on the matter, the Pentagon boasted Trump's action in Iran. Mikey Weinstein, founder and president of the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, said the nonprofit group had received more than 200 complaints from roughly 50 military installations since Saturday, involving reports of U.S. commanders linking Christianity to the biblically sanctioned war in Iran.
Wow.
So this is not just like a random report.
This is not just, and it's not even one commander. Crazy. It seems like, many people. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
And it's at the highest levels of the U.S. government as well.
Right. I mean, yeah, we know Pompeo is one of, I mean, he's former head of CIA, openly,
Oh yeah, and
raptured or rapture friendly or rapture ready or
he's
whatever
trying
it
to
is.
get raptured.
Yeah, trying to get raptured. Yeah. This morning, our commander opened up the combat readiness status briefing by urging us to not be afraid as to what is happening with our combat operations in Iran right now. One complaint reads, quote, he urged us to tell our troops that this was all part of God's divine plan, and he specifically referenced numerous citations out of the book of Revelation referring to Armageddon and the imminent return of Jesus Christ. He said that President Trump, quote, President Trump has been anointed by Jesus to light the signal fire in Iran to cause Armageddon and mark his return to Earth.
So yeah, Katie, apparently the guy, that is green lighting, shooting the, weakest among us in the face, also got the thumbs up from Jesus.
Oh, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the guy
Turning
who
away the sick and the poor and
double
the
tap
migrants.
like boats when there are people who have survived bombings on boats and are treading water and then takes them out too.
But is anointed by Jesus.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. I mean,
And the guy who's probably a pedophile or rapist,
right.
definitely a rapist, and God knows, I mean, just a criminal all around.
Yeah. And like brags about cheating on his taxes, basically. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like he doesn't even walk the walk. I do remember once, I think someone asked him why the IRS was targeting him. He's like, I think it's because I'm extremely religious. No one actually thinks he's extremely religious. The evangelicals just know that he'll govern for them. That no one actually believes that. But that's what I think is so scary about all of this, is that like Zionist Jews think that Armageddon is ridiculous. So they're like, yeah, sure, believe that stuff about us, that we're going to have to go back and either convert or be like suffer an eternal damnation. That's fine because we don't believe in your thing. And then Huckabee, those guys, they don't actually care about the Jews, so they're fine. It's just this like, it's this feedback loop of that just happens to in the midst of this feedback loop of various either biblical prophecies or kind of like national ethnic prophecies happens to get a lot of other people killed who have no interest in either of those visions.
Katie, do you remember this was his first term? Remember when he was holding the Bible upside down and he had to like
forgot that. I think I may black that out.
Yeah, that's when he cleared out Lafayette Square and he went out there with
I remember that part
chairman
of it,
of the Joint Chiefs. It was General, what was his name that he later got in a fight with him too?
Yeah.
That general.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, Trump isn't a born again. He's not religious. He's not an evangelical. Do you have any insights into what is actually motivating him? And like, so you have Rubio, who I think is a real neocon ideologue. I don't think he's very particularly evangelical. I don't know though. And then you have Trump, who's not anything but opportunist. So what is it? I mean, is it just a question of who is in his ear last? Because I'm trying to imagine them making the case to Trump that this is a good idea.
Yeah, I think, he cornered himself with Iran, and he's got, I think it's a combination of many factors. Like, he's been led to believe that, I mean, he's riding high on these tactical military successes. Like, he kidnapped Maduro. His framing of the strike against the Iranian nuclear facility last summer, like, he's like, oh, I can do these military victories. I can sell this tough man image. I'm strong. I have these short, decisive campaigns. And, he famously, doesn't read his military and intelligence briefings and doesn't trust them either. And even though, by all accounts, even last week we had these reports from the Pentagon, that were being leaked to the press saying the Pentagon is warning against this military conflict with Iran. Like, the U.S. is not in a strong position for it. It has a shortage of interceptors, various munitions. The New York Times just had this report yesterday about, like, intelligence assessments. But regardless, I think it's a common, he's got these people in his ear who are mostly, a lot of these pro-Israel donors, Netanyahu,
Adelson.
Miriam Adelson, and and this desire to be this tough guy that he issued these threats against Iran. Iran has been the self-created enemy he's created for himself since his first term. he restarted the Iranian nuclear crisis. That's been growing. He got pushed, into this war last summer, and it's just festering. And I think, but it was hubris. It was hubris in his own. He was led to believe that this could be an easy war, and now I think he's shocked. I think he's angry, and that's evident in some of his public appearances. And he said that, we didn't think Iran was going to hit in the Gulf. We didn't think Iran was going to do this. And it's like, no, it was actually very obvious. Iran had telegraphed all of that. And so, but yeah, so he cornered himself.
Right. And someone wrote, and this, I just want to read this one comment. He's going after the people that tried to assassinate him. Now, I don't believe that they did try to assassinate him, but they definitely spread those rumors, right? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I don't know how much. I mean, basically that goes back to after the assassination of Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian general. There's Iran said they were going to take revenge, and there was threats and all of that. So yeah, and the Israelis have really used that to be like, oh, Iran is threatening you. There's people in Iran who are threatening you, but I don't know how much actually that was a serious threat to Trump, or how much he necessarily took that seriously. I mean, he just wanted to deal with Iran like this. Iran has been this, U.S. nemesis for almost 50 years now, and he's portrayed himself as this deal maker, peacemaker, and he couldn't make a deal with them. I mean, he didn't put a deal. He wasn't willing to accept the kind of compromise that would have been kind of like win-win, but still get real significant Iranian concessions. And, I think he thought he had a good string of military successes, which Iran is a whole nother challenge, and there is no easy military solution, and certainly nothing obviously like Venezuela, as we're seeing. This is quickly has become a big quagmire, and it's just going to get worse.
Sina, do you think, I just wanted to ask, do you think I'm totally out to lunch if me personally right now?
Yes, of course, Brad. No, I'm just kidding. Unrelated.
It would be very hard to convince me that a significant factor here is not that the Netanyahu government, probably among others, has extremely compromising footage of him, from his dealings with Epstein, doing unspeakable things. And, they can basically be like, you're going to help us do this, or we're going to publish this tape of you from 20 years ago doing unspeakable things.
I mean, who knows? I mean, I think that Epstein was, definitely connected. I mean, obviously to intelligence, Israeli intelligence. He seemed to have been some kind of shadow broker in that world, having many clients and stuff, but obviously strong connections to Israel. It seems like one of the things they do in that world is get blackmail on people and powerful people. That's obviously what he was doing. So, you just connect these dots. It seems plausible that they have blackmail on Trump, but
because it's like his place in New York and in Texas and all of it. I mean, they're chock full of video cameras in every room. When you read these files of like what was going on there, like that stuff's out there. It just I just find it hard to imagine with the military advisors, telling him, hey, this isn't a good idea, and
like what would make him ignore that?
Yeah, I mean, it is
even from back in the day. Here's these tweets of his, talking about, critically about messing with Iran in this respect. It's hard for me not to think about those sorts of things as being like, why? Because I don't know if you would agree or disagree, but they're talking about it. I feel like am I in college again? Because I'm hearing the same stuff as when they went into Iraq and Afghanistan, like, oh, it's going to be like a couple weeks or whatever. We're still there. And if you couldn't get that done, thinking that Iran, like, I think I said to my dad the other day, to me, it's like trying to take over Rhode Island and failing miserably, and then being like, now we're going to go after California. Like,
dude, it really is insane. It really is insane, and it is totally irrational. And so, yeah, I think it's natural to raise these questions, and I don't know. Who knows? It could be. I mean, I don't know if the Epstein stuff, if they had blackmail on him and they just forced him. I mean, regardless, the thing is, you know, even if let's just say, you know, this Epstein stuff is a big political headache, obviously, for him, and he wants to distract from that, and he went to a war for Iran. The thing is, a war with Iran also has all the makings of a big political cost for him. Maybe not immediately, but this is not going to go. I don't think it's going to go well. I mean, he could try to
There's
just wash
low
his hands of
support
it.
for it too.
Yeah, very low support. Yeah, and it's very interesting. I mean, I think all the polls I've seen are like something like 60% of Americans are against, and then like it's only like Trump's base that's kind of they're for whatever he does. So it seems like they're kind of on board. But even in the MAGA base, I mean, a lot of the conservative influencers and pundits are against this. It's very interesting. I was actually just last week, just before the war happened, I was invited by Bill O'Reilly to go on his program.
I saw you, yeah.
Yeah, and that was super interesting. And he was actually against. He's like, yeah, I talked to Trump and I said, you know, he should make a deal and a war would be bad and like Muslims would be killed in Ramadan, you know, and it's like, I'm like, yeah. So, and then, you know, you put that with like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, you know, Matt Walsh is criticizing this, you know, like the world's worst person is, you know, right about this.
Right, exactly, right.
But so, you know, that's, you know, and even Charlie Kirk was against the war last summer. J.D. Vance later said that he called him and was one of the voices against the war. So you have, you know, the neocon segment of the Republican Party and the kind of as you know, the Israel firsters basically. But then the traditional hardcore MAGA base seems against this. And as the consequences of this get worse and worse, which I expect them to, that's probably just going to increase. So my point is that, yeah, this war is also going to have a political cost for Trump. And that's going to probably, that if they don't end it soon somehow, which is going to be hard to do, imagine, you know, going into the midterms, all of that could really hurt Republicans as well. Yeah,
it's really an insane thing. And actually, I'm going to ask Nate, there's a clip I want to show about Lindsey Graham talking about what it means to be America first, because I think they're scrambling to figure out.
I think I already have that.
Oh, do you have that? Is that
just
okay?
Like 1 minute.
Then yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's really. I mean, it is funny how. You know what's amazing is that the fact that the support is so low, given how propagandized Americans are. I mean, like most people had no idea that Iran uses any restraint, like that their restraint pales in comparison to Israel and America, right? That they telegraph what they're going to do so that people can get out of the way, and that they target military facilities as opposed to civilian ones. And the fact that people are being told every day that Iran is this theocratic, irrational, like evil, Western hating, devil worshiping place, which is so far from the truth. But even that narrative is even being propagandized with that narrative. The fact that they're still against this is pretty telling. You know, if they knew that if they were getting reliable media that not totally biased, I mean, it would be even lower, the support, but it's pretty.
Seriously, I think that's a really good point. Because Iran is so heavily demonized, and despite that, you know, 60% of Americans are against it. That tells you, people are sick of these wars, and there's this fundamental distrust that I think Americans just have at the people who do this stuff.
Yeah. We do have this clip, right? This is an amazing Lindsey Graham clip where he's basically they're asking him if this is maybe, you know, in some ways not the most America first thing to do. This is from one of the Sunday morning news shows. Let's take a listen.
In Iran, but America first is to kill people who wish us ill with a record of trying to destroy us in the region, to take them off the table. Celebrate today, please, my Democratic colleagues, that the most evil man on the planet is no more. He terrorized his own people. 32,000 people at least had been killed protesting a better life. He was trying to get a nuclear weapon. He was building missiles to hit the United States. He was a religious Nazi that had a horrible agenda for the region and the world. He is no more. Well done, President Trump.
Okay, so he's a religious Nazi. By the way, he loves comparing people to Nazis. Hamas are Nazis. The Ayatollah is Nazi. The Iranians are Nazis. Never a bad word about the people who are actually engaging in a genocide. Never a bad word about them. You know, all these people for whom any comparison to Nazis is anti-Semitic or is just taboo. They're really happy to use it in one direction. So this is a new America First policy, I guess, that he's defining, which is killing people, I guess overthrowing governments if you feel like they have said critical things about you. I don't even know what
it sounds like, he's just like throwing everything at the wall like a child. He's like, they're evil, they're Nazis, they're,
exactly.
it's like, it's to
Buzzword,
me, it sounds pretty like desperate. Like he's just, guys, like, he's a Nazi, he's this. It's like
waving like shiny colors or bright colors.
And it just betrays that, these people have no logic or facts behind what they're trying to do. They don't have like a coherent, compelling arguments. It's just they have to rely to these kind of caricatures and these kind of things to try to deceive people, and what we're seeing that, Khamenei, for all of his many, his repression and all of the bad things we can say about him and his rule. He was a religious leader who had many followers, not just in Iran, but throughout, the region and amongst many Shia Muslims. And you see all these huge rallies in like Pakistan and India and in Bahrain and Iraq and Lebanon, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. So that is something I think they also did not calculate, these very short-sighted people, that this is having this kind of blowback well beyond Iran. And, killing someone like that is having this radicalizing effect amongst many. And again, it's like the story we've seen time and again in America's kind of misadventures in the Middle East, that this is a region that the American empire, for, whatever reason, has been so obsessed with. And Iran is really, it was not a U.S. adversary. It's a mid-tier developing country that America could have had much more constructive relations with it. But America chose to be, obsessed with this in a disproportionate degree and invest so much resources in trying to topple this government and transform this region. And we've been trying to transform this region for decades now to make it safe for Israel and Israel's expansion and our hegemony, U.S. hegemony. And it's failed. And I think this could be the even bigger war that is going to be, history may very well remember it as, another sharp decline in the U.S. empire. And, the importance of the Persian Gulf to America can't be overstated. The petrodollar, these are American kind of protectorates, and all that is vulnerable right now. These countries like Dubai, who's going to go back to Dubai? People are talking about their whole political economy relied on foreign investment. Now they're experiencing capital flight. People are paying $250,000 to run away. Burj Al Khalifa is on fire. The ports are on fire. And if this war escalates, Iran can take out the desalinization plants, or people talk about, the Strait of Hormuz is so important because X percentage, whatever, 40% of the world's energy comes out of it. But they don't talk as much about what goes into it, which is a lot of the food that these Gulf countries that, they're just deserts. They don't have any food. They don't have any water. And they also have these desalinization plants for water that are very vulnerable to drones. And Iran can hit those if this conflict escalates. So it's just they got themselves in a quagmire. And I don't think they thought that Iran was going to hit back, but it's an existential war for Iran. So they're hitting back hard.
Right. Yeah, I think it seems like, this is also one of these predictable things where there's such an such an aggressive, disproportionate, unjustifiable strike that whatever opposition there is, and there obviously is a lot of opposition, and there's a range of opposition. There's like genuine homegrown opposition, then there's foreign intervention, then there are instigators. And you had like people bragging about that, like Mike Huckabee bragging about that, and Samira Moyahedin, who's going to join us at another point, another episode, but she also was on Useful Idiots. She was like, every time someone says something like that, they're like putting a target on the backs of all the non-foreign instigator protesters, right? And in many ways, it's probably because they wanted to provoke as a repressive a reaction as possible, because that would ratchet things up and create more tension, more instability. But
yeah, exactly.
I don't see how this just strikes me as having the effect of strike, no pun intended, of having the effect of really like rallying, people circling wagons, becoming, much more defensive and protective of the government, tending towards, their government.
Yeah, I think, first of all, you raised a number of good points. One is these kind of interventions and into Iranian protests, into the legitimate grievances of the Iranian people, what it does is give the government a justification for a more brutal crackdown, a militarized and securitized crackdown. So when Mike Pompeo, for example, in the January-December protests in Iran is like, oh, next to each one of these protesters, there's a Mossad agent supporting them. Or Trump is like, we're there, we're locked and loaded, all of this stuff, that the government then is much more brutal and merciless in cracking down. And what we saw in January was, I just wrote this piece for The Nation called like the Iranians, the Americans, America doesn't listen to. And I try to highlight this segment of the Iranian opposition that we rarely hear about in our media and in our conversations about Iran, which is the actual organic, homegrown, grassroots Iranian dissidents. These civil society activists, dissidents, people who've been political prisoners, who are against war and are against the despotism and repression of their own government and want positive political change, fundamental political change. But these are people we never hear about. We hear about Reza Pahlavi, who Trump, interestingly, was asked about today and kind of humiliated him.
Yeah, we got to play that.
Which was actually amazing to see. But regardless, because, that doesn't serve their agenda. They want someone like Reza Pahlavi, they've helped prop up, and Israel has heavily supported of him. And they've got these satellite TV networks that are just promoting him 24/7 and trying to present him as the only alternative for Iranians, which in reality, he's a very divisive figure. And support for some of these separatist groups we're seeing. And today there was a report that the U.S. is going to arm Kurds. And this is just going to create a more destructive situation in Iran. This is only going to create a more, trying to push it towards civil war and chaos, not for what the Iranian people actually want, which is democratic change, which is better economic situation, which is more, representative governance. So, but yeah, for another segment of the Iranian population, to your point, there's definitely rallying around the flag, rallying around defense of the nation, and rallying around just each other and radicalization, after Khamenei's assassination. So especially for the base of the Islamic Republic, the government, and, beyond that, you're seeing that play out. That's also part of the story. I mean, it's a polarized society, much like our society.
Right.
So you'll have, people of all these different inclinations.
That's another thing that the media never really talks about, right? It's like a whole monolith. So it's either all a bunch of like backwards religious people, or all a bunch of like liberal Western loving secularists.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no like, nuance or no discussion of like nuance, or how it's not one huge monolith. It's not two like huge monoliths. I know
it's multiple
yeah,
different
exactly.
monoliths. And it kind of reminds me of, I remember in the 2016 election when Trump won, so many people were shocked. I remember, I was in DC and in New Jersey at the time, and people didn't know any Trump supporters. They're like, how did this happen?
Right.
I don't even know anyone who voted for this guy. But it's similar in Iran, where people, we're often in polarized societies. People are in their own bubbles, social bubbles, and they may not even. So yeah, for them, it could be like, oh, everyone is like celebrating an attack. They're all happy Khamenei died and stuff. But then you might still have like hundreds of thousands of people who take to the streets of these cities or mourning him. But those parts of the society aren't necessarily interacting with each other. But then for us as analysts, or for a U.S. decision maker or policymaker to be like, oh, they're all going to welcome us as liberators, or they're all this, we're just deluding ourselves.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I also, like I said this earlier on the show when I was talking to people about Cuba. In fact, Nate or Brad, do we have any videos of Iranian diaspora people like celebrating? And Sina, I know we're running late. How much time do you have? Because I want to be respectful of your time.
Maybe like 10 more minutes by 9:30.
Okay, cool. Great. Yeah, sure. Yeah. So, we see these videos of people who are dancing, and I understand. Like, I'm not for this happening. I can understand maybe some people think like, okay, it's a net positive, but I can't really understand. And again, I would disagree with them, but what I can't understand at all, or empathize with, or like sympathize with, are people celebrating. Like, even if you think this regime had to be whatever you want to call it. I mean, I don't know. Has it been regime change yet? Obviously, there's been a major strike, and I should ask you about this actually. But like, what I don't get is how people can celebrate something with such a high civilian death toll.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to it, arguably, and it requires a sociological study of modern Iranian public opinion and the evolution of it. And I would just say that, the people, there's legitimate grievances, obviously, that many Iranians have had against their government. That has been a repressive government that's limited political freedom, social freedoms. The economic situation is really deteriorated, and the economic part is actually largely due to U.S. sanctions.
Oh yeah, of course.
And they're intended to create public discontent and uprising. So you saw, for example, in the January protests, you had Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, say, "Oh, this is our policy working. People are in the streets. We did this," because that's the point. They pushed 10 million Iranians from the middle class to poverty just in the past since 2018. So this desperation, but you couple that with, so basically, A, there's a lot of legitimate grievances, but B is massive disinformation campaigns, and people there needs to be. I've been saying this for many years, that we really, people should investigate and write about and talk about this massive media propaganda targeting Iranians, the Persian language, and it's crazy. Like, you'd be shocked. Like, this Iran International, Manoto, so many websites, so many social media bots. A lot of them we know through studies by Haaretz, studies from Citizen Lab of University of Toronto, propping up Reza Pahlavi, for example. So, but basically, if you talk to these people, it's total misunderstanding that they have. So this is where the miscalculation comes. Like, they're like, the Islamic Republic is terrible, Khamenei is terrible, they need to go. America says they're going to be able to get rid of them. It's going to be easy. It's going to be low cost. So this is what they're led to believe. Like, if you watch Iran International and if you watch these channels, the spin is that, this government everything is the fault of this government, nothing, not the US, not Israel. And getting rid of them is going to be very easy. It's going to be very limited. It's going to be very easy. And your lives are just going to get better. So you could be someone in Tehran who has a decent apartment, who has a car, who has a job, and kind of a middle-class lifestyle. Yes, you're in this kind of repressive climate, or, you've had some of your freedoms limited, but, there's subsidized water, subsidized electricity, whatever. But, you might be, so for us, it would be strange if we see like, oh, they're like gung-ho, like, yeah, there's war, they're going to be gone. But that's because they think their life is not going to get worse. They think their life is going to get better because they've been deceived by a lot of this propaganda, when sadly, the more likely situation is that their life is going to get a lot worse, that they might rather, it might be more likely they end up in a refugee camp in Turkey like 5 years from now than in a much better life. Now, regardless, again, the society is polarized. There's people of all beliefs, and the diaspora is even more disconnected and, detached from the realities of modern day Iran. But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
No, yeah,
basically, there's a lot of media warfare, and there's, mix that with legitimate traumas and legitimate grievances, and you get this strange reactions. But I think that is also dwindling. Even since Saturday, I've been noticing it. As people see the scenes coming out of Iran, people I know, my friends and family, you don't really see that sentiment. A lot of people were happy Khamenei was gone. He was a dictator. He was, for them, he was all this stuff. But now, people are just afraid and worried. Yeah.
Yeah. And it also makes sense, if you're not watching alternative media, you may not see that these hundreds of schoolgirls were like the first victims, right? It's not just Khamenei, but it was actually literal schoolgirls, from a government that claims to care about freeing women and girls from Iranian oppression or whatever. So maybe that's another reason that would make it easier for people to kind of be joyfully in the streets. I guess I'm being a little charitable, hoping that some of them just didn't even know about how like violent it was.
Yeah. But I don't think we should over exaggerate them. They're not really an important
force.
They're
just, that actually goes back to your article.
They're not an important force in Iran. You haven't seen, it's not like what they wanted is like, I don't know, people to come out and take over, welcome the Americans and this and that. No, you saw for the funeral of these girls in Iran, in that small town, it seemed to me like tens of thousands, if not hundreds of, I don't know, like it's those videos, like so many people. So that is obviously the constituency that is much more consequential and important to the future of Iran.
Oh yeah, no, I was talking about the diaspora people celebrating. I'm saying like maybe to be charitable them, they didn't see, because if they're not watching critical media, all you're going to see from like the morning shows. I mean, I think one of the Sunday morning news shows mentioned the attack on the schools. Like
that's true. And then, a lot of that, the Persian language media doesn't cover that at all.
Right.
Iran International, Manoto, they're not covering any of that. And if they do, they try to blame it on the government, the Iranian government, so.
Well, to wrap, I want to actually ask you about, you just made a point that's related to this piece that you wrote. So let's take a look at what Trump had to say about Pahlavi, and then I'll ask you to react to it and how it relates to the thesis of this article that you have, which is the Iranian voices America isn't hearing. And I want to ask you about what determines which voices get elevated. So let's hear Trump.
Reza Pahlavi. Is he an option at all in your mind?
I guess he is. Some people like him, and we haven't been thinking about too much about that. It would seem to me that somebody from within maybe would be more appropriate. I've said that. He looks like a very nice person, but it would seem to me that somebody that's there, that's currently popular, if there's such a person. But we have people like that. We have people that were more moderate. These were radical lunatics, and you know what they get? They get nothing. All they do is kill people.
Okay. So he also said, I think he told Jonathan Karl that it was a little complicated because a lot of their first and second choices for replacing Khamenei had been killed. So what is the state of the Iranian government, the so-called regime? I don't like using that word because to me there's no definition of regime, except if it's an adversary of the United States, then we call it a regime. But what is the status right now? What is coming next? And also, why were the voices that were elevated, and why weren't the voices that you spoke of not elevated? And if you could tell us a little bit about some of those people.
Yeah, well, the status of the government, as far as is we can assess from the outside, and I am very confident about this, is that it's very much intact. There's no signs of regime collapse or, decision-making falling apart. Obviously, Khamenei was assassinated, and even the assassination of Khamenei has many interesting question marks, because he was in his above-ground residence. He was apparently with his family, and pretty much he knew it was coming, and he kind of wanted to go out that way. And I think for the government's ideology, as well as in just Shia Islam more generally, this idea of martyrdom is very galvanizing. And you can see that him getting killed in the opening blow has really, the Islamic Republic has owned the streets since then. Not that I'm not saying it's popular, I'm not saying, but it has a base, and its base is currently in the streets from Tehran to other cities. They've been radicalized, they've been galvanized. But other than that, Pezeshkian, the president, is alive. It seems like most ministers are alive, the Speaker of Parliament, parliamentarians, the Judiciary Chief. So there's a leadership council that has been created right now with the President Pezeshkian, the Judiciary Chief, and this cleric from the Guardian Council, this other body. It seems like what basically the strategy of Iran to prepare for this war has been to disperse its political leadership, disperse the military infrastructure and leadership and missiles, and for everyone to have multiple successors and to delegate authority to all these places where all this stuff has been dispersed. And so that seems to be holding, and that makes these the potential for these kind of decapitation strikes or paralyze the whole system much less. And we see that it hasn't been paralyzed. So in Iran, just talking with relatives and contacts there, the banking system is working, the utilities are working. Despite all of this, those core infrastructures are all working. And in the June war, for example, Israel opened that war with decapitation strikes as well and took out a lot of the military leadership. And actually, for about 15 hours, Iran seemed paralyzed. It wasn't hitting back. And then it started to. This time, Iran hit back from the beginning. It's been hitting back every day, throughout the day, hitting back hard. So, and I think that's part of this dispersing the the military infrastructure and some of that decision making, but that's also importantly not because the command and control has collapsed. That has not. This is intentional, and the decisions are very much systemic. Like it's still the system that's there and the system that is making these decisions. And I think could move, is deciding on whether to escalate, whether to de-escalate, whether to pursue a ceasefire, which, they're not doing that right now. Yeah. What was your other question?
Oh, it was kind of about Pahlavi, why he's getting played. It seems like he's going the way of Maria Machado.
Crazy.
And also like what, on a related note, like what determines who gets elevated by Western elites? Is it just people who literally won't be successful? Is it like, what's the woman's name with the flower in her hair all the time?
Masih Ali-Najad.
Yeah. Or Goldie Gomara. Like, why are their voices kind of raised? And why aren't the people? And sorry, I'm about to sneeze. Excuse me. Thank you. Why aren't the people who you talk about in your article incorporated into the discussion?
I mean, that's a very good question. I mean, the people that I mentioned in my article, people from like Mir Hossein Mousavi, who's an ex-prime minister, who's a leader of the Green Movement, which to this day was the largest protest movement in Iran, that actually spurred defections from the government. It was actually a movement, and he was actually a leader who was a pro-democracy leader who had the potential to actually change the system, who's been under house arrest since 2011. And yet, he is someone who's just independent-minded. His statements in the midst of these protests and all the people who've been supporting him, of which there's many, and a huge part of the Iranian civil society and people there. One of the three principles is no foreign intervention.
Right.
Same with Mostafa Tajdadeh, who's a former deputy interior minister. He's a very prominent dissident there, who's also in prison. And so they are not amenable to foreign intervention and being used and all this stuff. And I would argue they're much more principled, they're much more intelligent, and actually have a plan and a vision and an understanding of how the world works and Iranian history, whereas people like Reza Pahlavi or Masih Ali-Najad and these people are just more opportunists and kind of con artists, really, in many ways. And Pahlavi is obviously the son of the former Shah, the former dictator, and he probably has a gripe against the Iranian people ultimately for what happened to him and his family. So there's an element of like vengeance and, making them pay for it, I would argue. But, he's hedged all his bets on foreign intervention, nothing on grassroots mobilization, nothing on actually building an inclusive movement. He is a very exclusionary political movement. It's very fascistic. Like they go after other opposition and dissidents just as much as they go after the Islamic Republic, actually more, which is very interesting because now Trump is abandoning him, talking about the Kurds. Like the Pahlavists hate the Kurds. Like Pahlavi, literally, you can go on his Twitter and find last week he threatened to suppress the Kurds if he comes to power. Because the Kurds last week announced this coalition. I think probably now we know in preparation for being armed by the CIA, like these Kurdish separatist groups, or some of them are separatists. And Pahlavi threatened them, and they are ultimately this kind of Iranian chauvinists and their own brand of nationalists, like these monarchists. And so there's all these tensions. And I think ultimately that plays into the hands of Israel, because Israel just support them all to get Iranians at each other's throats. Monarchists, various ethnic minorities, probably elements of the regime. And it's better for them if Iranians just all kill each other and descend into chaos and civil war. And so these people are kind of the useful idiots, like Reza Pahlavi, or these people dancing. They don't want their country to be torn apart, like these Iranians we were talking about who are dancing. But unfortunately, they're naive and they've been deceived. And now we're seeing that Trump is opting for supporting these armed separatist, militias to attack Iran from the West. And I think they're probably going to try to carve out a part of Iran and do some ground incursions with air support. And it can get really ugly. But at that point, you're going to unify most Iranians against that.
Right.
Including a lot of the monarchists. So that's going to be very interesting to see to play out. And it also just shows how dumb the Trump and Israel are in ultimately understanding Iran and its society and public opinion there.
Yeah. Well, Sina, thank you so much. It's always such a treat to have you on because you know so much about this. I'm going to have to start booking you more regularly because we don't have enough time to cover all the stuff that you know about. So I'll have to have you on more frequently to get more info out of you. So I don't have to.
Yeah. No, I'd be super happy. Always happy to come on. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Take care. Bye.
That was great. What a great show. Love that perspective. Thank you guys for coming in and watching this. I have a couple things to show you. One is let's take a listen at the way that Marco Rubio is in a little bit of trouble, because basically he made an oopsie where he kind of admitted. Well, I have a theory. I think this may also be a psyop, which I'll explain in 1 second. But first, let me tell you without my tinfoil hat on. So in a press conference with the German chancellor Tuesday morning, in response to comments from Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying the president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that there would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties. So then, of course, Trump contradicts this account from Rubio, as well as one from Congressman Mike Johnson. So let us take a look at Trump's response to this claim that it was Israel forcing their hand. So, okay, Brad, I'm sending you this, and then we'll play the other one afterwards. So let's hear Trump's response when asked if Israel forced America's hand.
Mr. President, did Israel force your hand to launch these strikes against Iran? Did Netanyahu pull the United States into this war?
No, I might have forced their hand. You see, we were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were going to attack first. I felt strongly about that. And we have great negotiators, great people that do this very successfully and have done it all their lives very successful. And based on the way the negotiation was going, I think they were going to attack first. And I didn't want that to happen. So if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand. But Israel was ready and we were ready. And we've had a very, very powerful impact because virtually everything they have has been knocked out now.
Oh, that's so romantic. Now it makes me think of like, if he's saying that they didn't force their hand, Israel saying wait, hold on. Basically Rubio said, implied that Israel forced their hand. Then Trump is saying, if anything, we forced Israel's hand. And that makes me think it's like a romantic moment, like where people their hands meet, like you don't know who
kind
starts.
Of like you hang up first. No, you hang up first.
Yeah, exactly. But the opposite, because it's like they're colliding, and it's like you could just see their hands brush, and then they, instead of consummating their love through sexual relations.
Okay, stop talking.
Actually,
no,
it's actually it is. Don't worry, it's not that gross. It's just a murderous
image in my head
a murderous war attack. It's not as gross. Don't worry. It's something
like the lady and the tramp.
I know,
it's like but it's them.
Yeah, but them, yeah.
But if he's saying that, isn't he basically taking responsibility for a war crime or breaking international law? Then?
Yeah, or bragging, as right. He would put it. But no, that's of course. But I mean, that's funny. Like you can every now and then you'll see people on Twitter, these Israeli bots or these American Zionist bots who aren't even bots. They're just like. Maybe they're bots or they're just like trolls as humans. In other words, they may not be online trolls. They're just actual trolls, but they're saying like, oh, Iran did this, that, the other, used white phosphorus, stuff they have no evidence for. But it's like, wait, you're talking about what now? An international law? But let's take let's take a look at this cool back-to-back of Rubio. Who said it better, Rubio 1 or Rubio 2?
Yesterday, you told us that Israel was going to strike Iran, and that's why we needed to get involved. Today, the president said that Iran was going to get.
Yeah, your statement is false.
Okay, hold on. Sorry. So for people watching later, who may be listening only, this clip we're about to hear is from March 3rd. Let's listen to it.
Yesterday, you told us that Israel was going to strike Iran, and that's why we needed to get involved. Today, the president said that Iran was going to get.
Yeah, your statement is false. So that's not what I was asked very specifically. Were you there yesterday?
Yes, I asked the question.
And so the president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that
sorry, I didn't, in case it wasn't clear. So that was that. And then here he is this is him actually speaking on the 2nd. Ready?
And so the president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed. And then we would all be here answering questions about why we knew that and didn't act.
See, okay, obviously major contradiction. But I also think that maybe that it's like party line now. They're just figuring out that like this is going to become unpopular and they might as well pin it all on Israel. I'm not at all saying that Israel does not want this to happen, but I'm kind of thinking more and more that like, you know, it's being overly simplified and I don't want to say Israel is being scapegoated in a way that I think Israel is like innocent. Israel is not innocent. They're genocidal, 100% genocidal. But I do think that, you know, the United States has its own motives that people are kind of blind to. And this goes back to that whole debate about like wag the dog. Is the West just doing Israel's bidding? And I really don't think it's just that. And obviously people know I think Israel should cease to exist as a Jewish state. I think if there needs to be one state. So I'm not saying this in any way to exonerate Israel. I just think we're not getting the full picture about how the West operates and what motivates the West. And in fact, if you have any ideas for this, I really want to have a good debate between two people, someone who thinks it's more the lobby forcing America's hand and someone who thinks there's something more to it. Like, you know, it'd be good, but he's no longer with us, of course, would have been what's his name? I'm sorry, I'm really tired today. The person who died, the Hezbollah leader. They killed him. Okay, someone help me out here. Rania and Abby and I talked about him. Nasrallah, thank you. Nasrallah, thank you, Bestie. Yeah, Nasrallah. Like that's Nasrallah's view, right? Which is that it's not just Israel pulling the shots. Thank you, Nate. Nasrallah. Yeah, it's not just Israel behind the scenes. And I think we do need to look into that. So if you have any good ideas for debates, I need someone on that side because we have a lot of people ranging from obviously John Mearsheimer talking about the lobby to Haim Bresheeth-Zabner on the other day made it very clear. Oh, someone. Okay, thank you, Danny Haifong. I'll get this. Has a guess. I forget his name, but he's convinced U.S. is in charge and Israel is just an arm of empire. Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably a little bit in between those two things, but I think it's worth looking at that because I think something that's scary and dangerous that's happening is that there's a very America first narrative that's framing what's happening as this is not America. This is not who we are. It is 100% who we are. Like it is who we are. We don't kill civilians quite at such a clip, but like look at Iraq, right? This is who we are. I think that we are doing things that are in Israel's maybe like immediate self-interest that aren't in the U.S.'s self-interest, at least on such an obvious level. But I really do think that there's more to it. And I think that there is the arms industry, obviously. Okay, so now, but speaking of which, I do want to
I really think, Katie, it's amazing that no one in the Western media has talked about how this has all been done by like the one person that currently has an open warrant out by the ICC. Like, how is that? And they're trying to like demonize Iran when dude has an open warrant for the International Criminal Court for an ongoing act of genocide.
But that's because the ICC is anti-Semitic, just like Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, the United Nations, also B'Tselem, the Israeli human rights organization, also Physicians for Human Rights, another Israeli organization, also
Doctors Without Borders.
Doctors Without Borders, Ilan Pappé, obviously, Raz Siegel, Omar Bartov. Yeah, it is. I mean, it is ridiculous, but this is interesting. So someone here wrote, the national security state is driving the bus and always has, with M16 and Mossad along for the ride.
MI6.
MI6.
Oh,
sorry.
no, I'm sorry. Wait. Is that
I think you're right. It's MI6.
Yeah.
But either way, we're going to have to do a good show on this. I mean, and then also people say, yeah, well, we'll have to do a show on it because someone says, I can't see how the toppling these regimes actually benefits the United States, though it enriches certain stakeholders like arms dealers, but U.S. as a nation state, how?
U.S. isn't a nation state. U.S. is a conglomeration of international corporations, and that's what they care about. That's who they serve. That's all that matters.
There's that, and then you could argue, I mean, it's not comparable because Israel wants land, and that's a very concrete thing that they get, right? They get the genocide and they get the land. But you could argue also, like, is it good for Israel to constantly, first of all, besides the like moral deprivation that they are turning their nation into, maybe it's not good to constantly have to worry about things like I don't know. I don't want to. Anyway, it's a bigger question. But what I'm going to do is, this is so important, this show. I don't think we should Patreon any of it, right, Brad?
Yeah, and I was just going to say that I think we agree that for them it's all about expansion and the creating of greater Israel. And if we could agree that they won't at any point unilaterally be like, okay, I think we're good now, they will. If it's true that they will continue to just try and grab more and more and more and more, at some point, like right now, apparently the West doesn't really care because it's just, these little areas directly surrounding right now what we call Israel. But what happens when, they're going further and further towards Europe, or like places that they do care about? Like at some point, they're going to have to be stopped because they're not going to stop themselves. And so to your question, or to your point, the fact that we've facilitated it up until this point, like you had said, maybe is short term, they think it's in their interests, but long term, it's pushing it closer and closer to a point where the world has to collectively stop them, and also by extension stop us as well.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah, we'll have to do a whole show on that because it is a very complicated thing. And I think I'm worried that the far right is defining this more and more. And when I hear stuff about like, why are we doing this for a foreign nation? Like I just think it's a very stupid, like, America firster narrative. It's like, this is not who we are. I'm getting like that. There's so much of that. And in a way it's good. I'm glad the right is seeing how bad it is to support Israel, but it also like, let's also be real about who the United States is. And Nate disagrees with you. And then I have to go, Brad, because I have some hot food waiting for me.
I mean, I would say to anybody that anyone that's trying to say this isn't who we are, you could stop taking those people seriously because they don't know what they're talking about.
Well, we want to welcome them in. We'll try to reach them. Yeah.
Right. Totally. Totally.
But so I am going to, we may make some of this Patreon. I'm not sure. We'll decide soon. But what I definitely want to do is make sure that so if you're watching this live, you're in luck because you saw the whole thing for free. If you're watching this later, and there may be some of this that there may very well be some of this that is Patreon only. But what definitely is Patreon only right now is a segment that we did with Haim Bresheeth-Zabner. If you missed it, it was great. He is an Israeli. Well, he's an ex-Israeli. He's an anti-Zionist Jew. He's the one of the founders of the anti-Zionist Jewish network, the Jewish Palestine network. Also, one of the founders of Holocaust Survivors and Descendants Against Genocide. And we have a great Patreon only, it's like over 20, I think maybe even be a half an hour segment with Haim, where he talks about Epstein. And so here is a little teaser of that Patreon only segment. And if you want to access that, you can do that at patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Again, that's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Let's take a look. Clarify what you meant earlier when you said Israel's Epstein button.
Epstein had between 5 and 10 million files.
Right.
We're talking about one of the greatest database of crime, probably the greatest ever. I don't think any mafia organization can compete with Epstein. And we have to ask ourselves a simple question. Why? What was he collecting all this for? Is an amateur collector of emails, of spicy pictures, sexy behavior, and worse, pedophilia and the rest of it? I don't think this was just a madness of Epstein. It was functional. He was collecting evidence. Now, who was he collecting evidence for? Some people are trying to hide their tracks by saying that he was collecting evidence for Russia.
Oh my God.
This is basically a mafia collection of evidence about people that can be used by those who have the evidence. And therefore, there are Epstein buttons for every politician in the West. And they use them. We could see that President Trump was not very happy when Netanyahu came to see him, because Netanyahu came to give him orders. And that's what you're going to do, Donald. And if you don't do that, we press the Epstein button. He's entrapped not just by the Epstein button, but by the Zionist millionaires and billionaires who are financing him, all the gifts that he has collected. And now he is a prisoner of a whole system, which for the first time is very visible. It's very difficult to deny it. And he is very worried. He's doing his best to keep the last bit of thousands and thousands of files, which include him, invisible. I hope he fails because I believe in the wish of Americans for a democracy.
Okay, and that, by the way, that is Haim Bresheeth-Zabner, not just an astute analyst, but a historian and the author of several books, including An Army Like No Other, How the Israel Defense Forces Made a Nation. Now, of course, what Haim says there is exactly like the thing that I think is one side, that, and I'm looking for someone to argue the other side, which is that it's not just, he actually used the word in our interview, in our paywalled interview, chunk. Wagging the dog. He said, talk about wagging the dog and how it's all Netanyahu wagging the dog of Trump. Anyway, let me just really quickly read some super chats. Thank you, everyone. Xbots say Iran is derated leadership, Kia. Thank you for becoming a member.
Maybe defeated.
Oh, defeated. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Tia, for becoming a member. Thank you, Yabitz, for the token of respect. Who's that Iranian Jewish guy you'd have on sometimes? Anybody? Also free Palestine. Iranian Jewish guy? Anyone know who that is? Thank you, Ricardo, for becoming a YouTube member. Thank you, Ricardo. Thank you, Wadeworth, so much for your generous donation. Oh, thank you, Farzan Nadeem. Katie, Nerdeen, and Chris, stay strong. Thank you so much for that. Thank you, Vinton Wallen, for becoming a member. Ode Rock writes, the West is demonizing Iran in the same manner the Zoroastrians were demonized by Muslims after the Islamic invasion of Iran in order to brutally genocide the native Zoroastrian population and selfishly benefit from the resource-rich Persian region. Okay. And a super sticker from Capano Now. Well, guys, this has been a super show. Thank you all so much. Make sure that you subscribe because we are doing these more and more, these extra streams. I think that's about all I have to say, right? And thank you, Phantom is Fanta. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Nate. Oh, happy birthday, Ryan. And belated happy birthday. Bring him on the screen. Come here. I just tried to add you. Where are you? There you are. To Brad. Thank you, Brad, for everything you do. Happy birthday. Your birthday was February. What's the date? Remind me.
21st.
February 21st. I have it in my thing. And I wasn't there, but I send you some exotic desserts. And for Brad, exotic is Italian.
And that's not, it's not exotic in the dirty sense. They were exotic in that I was not familiar with them.
Oh, yeah. Where'd your head even go there?
It's not like you sent me some stripper graham cake or something.
No.
You know,
oh my God!
Which,
but I
no offense to I fully support that, but that's not
pro sex work. Yeah. Well, I have to send you the texts from your dad that were hilarious.
Oh, that's right.
When because he made some corny jokes.
But no, that was I would not have had a birthday cake were it not for your exotic dessert.
Oh,
so
yeah, and it wasn't even birthday cake; it was better. Because who needs a birthday cake? A birthday,
yeah.
Well, thank you everyone again so much. Please do support the show at patreon.com/the Katie Halper Show. Support the fundraiser that Kate Willett is mentioned about Cuba, about that delegation, and support Nerdeen's fundraiser for that her legal case. Very important. Why are you laughing at that? Super chat.
Yeah.
Brad is the whitest white guy I've ever seen. I mean, it is. It is very far. Italian desserts, like a cannoli. He didn't know what a cannoli was. Yeah.
Katie, don't put my ignorance on.
No. It's not ignorance. It's a cultural thing. Yeah. All right. That is a funny comment. All right. Bye, everyone. I will see you next week. And make sure you subscribe. Hit subscribe and then the bell and also like. Bye, everyone.
I did everything right and they indicted me. And I don't know what the I'm doing. Antifa!